Chapter 4095. The second prince has already received your highness's gift. The hidden guarding reported dryly with downcast eyes. Duan Yu leaned against the window, his fingers casually flipping through a book, but his eyes didn't linger on it at all. Return to the academy in 3 days. Ing was taken aback. Is it because of the Heaven Origin Tournament's finals? But with His Majesty's current condition, it seems somewhat unwise for your highness to leave at this time. Everyone knew that it was better to stay in Phoenix Emperor City at this critical time. Duan Yu knitted his brows. I have an appointment with someone. Ing sighed. He knew he couldn't persuade him, so he didn't say anything else. As a subordinate, he would do whatever his master said. At this time, a person appeared from the window, and his figure swayed slightly. Ing quickly walked out the door, and soon returned to Duan Yu's side. Your Highness, there's news from the second prince's side. That person sent people to Jiwei City overnight. Duan Yu blinked, and his fingers subconsciously flipped through a page of his book. He asked dryly, he wants to hire assassins again? Didn't he have anything more interesting? His methods were so inferior that it was simply disappointing. Your Highness, we've already sent people to keep an eye on them. Should we? Duan Yu waved his hand absent-mindedly. No need. Since it's something that can be solved with money, why go through so much trouble? He said indifferently. You also go and issue a mission. Ing bowed obediently in astonishment, and his expression was a bit odd when he left. In terms of spending money, could this second prince compare to His Highness in terms of wealth? However, the second prince would probably cry if His Highness screwed him over like this. We don't have enough men of sacrifice recently. If the people from Jiwei City come, you will lead people to capture them. Whether it's feeding them drugs or extracting their souls, we'll keep them for our own use. Let these people do the dangerous missions. Don't worry, I have plenty of puppet talismans. You just need to lead people to capture them. This will also prevent our people from going out on missions. I'm always worried that your brains aren't good enough, and you'll be tricked to death. It's not easy for us to nurture you all. Haha. Ing walked out with a twitch of his mouth. He waved his hand, and several figures appeared beside him. Do you understand what your highness means? I want him alive. After capturing them, search their belongings and gather enough money to go to Jiwei City, and issue a mission to protect his highness. The worst part was his highness had said that anyone who came from Jiwei City was basically a fugitive. Regardless of whether they came to kill him or to protect him, he would capture them and keep them alive. Whose highness could be so deceitful? This was the prelude to causing trouble. If the city lord of Jiwei City knew the details, it was unknown whether or not he would come to his highness with his sword. His black city had suddenly become empty. All the assassins had been taken away. This was not someone's deliberate bait. He had walked right into the trap. At the same time, Dean Yin, who was far away in Wind Thunder City, had successively received a few groups of students and instructors of the academy. At this moment, the dean was listening to the report of a student who had rushed in with a dumbfounded expression. Dean, someone else is here. Yin Piaomiao asked expressionlessly. What amazing academy came this time? He really wanted to ask the people in charge of these academies if they had nothing better to do. Chapter 4096. What did the Imperial Academy's Tianyuan ranking finals have to do with you people? Did you have nothing better to do? You came to the Imperial Academy to watch the competition, but in reality you came to pick a fight. Humph. Yin Piaomiao paced back and forth on ethereal peak with his hands behind his back. Go, ask the little stoic when they're coming back. This was truly incredible. There were so many other academies fighting their way to the Imperial Academy, so how could they not accept the challenge? Wouldn't they be cowards if they didn't accept the challenge? The Crown Princess and the others should be back on the day of the competition. The Cultivation Hall's chief elder, Ku said with a chuckle, as he sipped tea from his teacup. But you don't have to worry. Elder Ku took another sip of tea and said with a chuckle, the little Crown Princess and the others are very responsible. They probably won't abandon our academy. They'll naturally come back when the time comes. Yin Piaomiao really wanted to chuckle at him. The little fellow was so angry when she left. I wonder if she'll be so angry that she won't come back. How's that possible? Elder Ko waved his hand vigorously. Although I haven't interacted with this child for a long time, I understand her personality very well. You understand? Yin Piaomiao couldn't resist rolling his eyes. What kind of understanding do you have? Of course. Elder Ko chuckled and stroked his extremely smooth beard. A little fellow like the little stoic who has a sharp tongue, but a soft heart won't blame Headmaster Yunfei. A proud little fellow like that will only blame herself when something happens. How could she blame others? Yin Piaomiao was startled when he heard this. He then turned to glance at Elder Ku and nodded pensively. Elder, you're quite knowledgeable. Elder Ku huffed and glared as he snorted. I've crossed more bridges than you've walked on. I've read the world's myriad forms. Is there anything I don't know? All right. Don't worry. Let's settle down those academies who came to cause trouble first. Headmaster. The two team mentors from Umbra Academy and Jiawei Academy request an audience. Yin Piaomiao's handsome face tensed up, revealing a displeased expression. These people really don't know when to stop. Yin Piaomiao raised her head and saw two instructors, one tall and one short, one fat and one skinny, walking towards her with a smile on their faces. Dean Yin, it's an honor to meet you. Yin Piaomiao looked at the two expressionlessly. Oh, so it's Instructor He Wei from the Umbra Academy, and Instructor Kuo-fu from the Jiawei Academy. It's an honor to meet you. The middle-aged scholar Instructor He Wei laughed dryly. He could see the dissatisfaction in Dean Yun's eyes. He hurriedly said with a smile, Dean, please forgive me for taking the liberty to visit you. Yin Piaomiao waved her hand and said indifferently, Are the two instructors uncomfortable living in the academy? No. Instructor He Wei hurriedly said with a smile. The academy's hospitality is very considerate. I didn't feel uncomfortable at all. Before Yin Piaomiao could say anything, the short, fat and broad-axe instructor spoke in a booming voice. I'm here to discuss the heaven-ranking battle with Dean Yun. Yin Piaomiao was confused. What do you mean? It's the heaven-ranking battle. Why do I need to discuss it with you outsiders? Instructor Kuo-fu chuckled. Since so many academies have gathered in Wind Thunder City, why don't we have a big competition? Chapter 4097. Flap, flap, flap. A small mechanical bird paced back and forth outside the window, knocking on the window. Lord Jojo, who was lying by the window and playing with Xiao Bao's precious beast, squinted her big watery eyes and glanced at that fellow listlessly. These few days, she was busy supervising the Mu family's group of troublemakers to practice martial arts, which made her unbearably busy. Today, she finally had nothing to do, so she was lying here and dozing off for a while. Who knew that a mechanical bird would come? At a glance, it was obvious that this mechanical bird was sent by that fellow Yin Piaomiao. When Arbor thought of Yin Piaomiao, she thought of her brother Yin Fiang, and couldn't help but secretly get angry. She allowed that mechanical bird to continuously peck at the window. After a long while, she impatiently opened the window and let that little fellow fly in. After the little mechanical bird hopped in, it opened its beak and spat out a roll of paper. Its beak opened and closed, saying, The location of the final match has been changed to Jiawei City's St. Jiawei Arena. Please arrive at Jiawei City's St. Jiawei Arena on time before 7 o'clock 3 days later. No waiting for you. Arbor suddenly sat up straight. For a moment, she thought that she was hearing things. She grabbed that mechanical bird back and patted its head. The little machine-operated bird miserably repeated what it had just said. Lord Jojo expressionlessly patted it again. The little mechanical bird repeated. She patted it again. And again when she patted the bird's head for the 5th time. Prince Mo was just about to stride into the bedroom. She heard that mechanical bird let out a flustered and exasperated cry. Are you done yet? How many times do you repeat that sentence? Please arrive at Jiawei City's St. Jiawei Arena on time before 7 o'clock 3 days later. No waiting for you. Flap, 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 flap. The little mechanical bird vigorously flapped its wings and angrily hopped out of the window. It flapped its wings and flew high up into the blue sky. Arbor expressionlessly looked at the bird that flew out. She stretched out her finger and poked Xiao Bao's precious beast, whose butt was facing her. Xiao Bao's precious beast had probably already been oppressed. Right now it didn't even want to move its butt. When she poked it, it shook its body slightly and continued to lie on the table, pretending to be dead. Emolien couldn't help but twitch her lips. How deranged was his little wife to the point that none of the little beasts wanted to pay attention to her. The only weirdo who could anger the mechanical bird was probably his little wife. Lady Qiao Qiao expressionlessly raised her head and looked at her husband who was walking in from the door. She raised her small arm. Emolien immediately hurried over and picked her up with a smile. Together, they sat on the couch in front of the window. He rubbed his head against her small face and asked, "Wifey, what's going on? That mechanical bird just now. Was it sent by the academy to inform us of the competition time?" "Well, it's broken," Arbor said expressionlessly. Emolien wanted to laugh, but quickly held it back. How could it be broken? It repeated itself 5 or 6 times, asking us to go to some arena in Jiawei City for the competition. If it's not broken, then what is it? He had never heard of the Royal School's Heavenly Yuan ranking competition being held at Jiawei City's underground black market's battle arena. What was wrong with it? Emolien took the roll of paper from the little girl's hand and flipped it open. She read 10 lines at a glance and smiled. Jiawei Academy, Umbra Academy, and the rest of the 6 academies have all gone to Wind Thunder City to look for Principal Yin. Originally, they were only going to watch the competition. In the end, Instructor Quofu from Jiawei Academy proposed to upgrade the Heavenly Yuan ranking competition to a competition that all the academies in the 3 continents can participate in. Chapter 4098. The little girl pursed her lips disinterestedly. I don't want to go anymore. Since any Tom, Dick, and Harry could participate in this Heavenly Yuan ranking competition, then wasn't the previous preliminaries meaningless? Emolien immediately understood the little emperor's meaning and couldn't help but pinch her small face in amusement. Don't worry, those academies that plan to participate in the Heavenly Yuan ranking competition will hand over a large amount of resources to participate. In addition, they also have to participate in the preliminaries. The preliminaries are only 3 days long, but the intensity should be greater than the danger we encountered when we went to Phoenix Grove last time. Moreover, after the preliminaries, there's basically no time for them to rest and reorganize. They'll directly enter the finals. Arbor took the paper from the man's hand and looked at the instructions and regulations on it. He nodded and said, Jiawei Academy and the others will agree to such harsh conditions. They must be plotting something. It was no wonder that the little fellow thought of them as a conspiracy. They truly wanted to participate in this competition with such a strenuous and unrewarding task. Yet they still had to invite everyone from the Royal Academy to Jiawei City to participate in the competition? No matter how one looked at it, it looked like they were plotting something. Emolien smiled faintly and picked up the little fellow, walking towards the bathing pool. Who cared what kind of conspiracy they were scheming? In any case, if they dared to scheme against them, they would just smack them to death. The little girl tugged at the corner of his lapel and raised her large eyes to glance at him defensively. What are you trying to do in broad daylight? Emolien blinked and looked at his wife innocently. Taking a bath? What bath in broad daylight? The little stoic was a bit speechless. After washing up, this hubby will accompany you for an afternoon nap. Jojo, you used to take an afternoon nap every day when you were young. Now that you're a few years older, it seems like you also take less afternoon naps. Nonsense. The little stoic stubbornly refused to admit her mistake. Which day am I not cultivating? Who takes an afternoon nap? Your whole family takes afternoon naps. Emolien grinned and rubbed his head against her head. Jojo, be good. Eat more and sleep well, then our baby will grow Io. Why are you hitting your hubby's head? The afternoon sun brushed past the window lattice. Little Treasure was lying there peacefully, as if it had nothing to live for. It was sad and beautiful. In the bustling harbor, ships of all sizes shuttled back and forth. There were ships anchored at the shore and magnificent pleasure boats slowly docked at the shore. There were even more large cargo ships. One after another, they loaded and unloaded their cargo, shuttling back and forth in an endless stream. Lady Jojo stood at the bow of the ship. She was dressed in a rose-colored dress and wore a jade phoenix hairpin on her head. Her face was devoid of any expression as usual. Hugging a round treasure beast, the little stoic leaned against the crown prince's side and surveyed the surroundings for a while before looking up at the crown prince. We've arrived. Because they had never been to Jiaowei City before, the teleportation glyph array wasn't sure if it could teleport them to the city in one go. Therefore, Emolian brought Tong and the others to a nearby teleportation portal in Arbor. Seeing that Jiaowei City wasn't too far away, they directly took a ship to come over. She felt that it was more reliable. Ahahaha. Classmate Xiao, classmate Mo, you finally arrived. Ahahaha. A burst of hearty laughter came from the front. Arbor and the others looked up and saw Instructor Ma from the cultivation hall leading 17 to 18 students to welcome them with a grin. His expression was full of gratitude that said, "You finally arrived." Chapter 4099. The little stoic looked around. Where are Xian and the others? The cultivation hall's mentor Ma laughed mockingly and said, Yesterday, student Xian and the others had a conflict with several students from Jiaowei Academy. Student Qi Xian and student Ko Hongwen both suffered minor injuries. Seeing the little stoic's small face instantly darken, Mentor Ma hastily waved his hand and said, "But don't worry, the other party is 100 times more miserable than them. They aren't minor injuries." Mo Lian led her displeased wifey down the ship's bow and glanced at Mentor Ma. "Why is that?" Mentor Ma sighed with a bitter expression. "This matter is a bit complicated. Let's return to the Academy's encampment first." Arbor and Mo Lian naturally wouldn't refuse. Since the Academy had already arranged accommodations for them, then that was for the best. It would save them the trouble of looking all over the place to find a place to stay. Mentor Ma and the others enthusiastically led them to the Academy's accommodations. This competition will probably last for about 7 days. Mentor Ma led the way in front and turned to say to them with a chuckle, "Principal Yun has a manor in Jiaowei City, and it's not far from Jiaowei Arena. We'll stay in that manor for a while for the time being." Arbor couldn't help but interrupt as he listened to the mentors nagging along the way. "What's going on at Jiaowei Academy?" Mentor Ma was hesitating on how to speak when a student beside him couldn't resist saying, "It's our first time coming to Jiaowei City. I feel like their night market is quite lively. Especially at night, it's quite nice to walk through the streets and have a drink or two in Jiaowei City's taverns. After we settled down, we invited some friends to the tavern for a drink yesterday. At that time, student Ko Hongwen and student Xian also went with us to play. Who knew that we would run into Jiaowei Academy's green-haired group along the way? And everyone got into a fight at the slightest disagreement." Another student beside him hastily interjected, "What slightest disagreement? They were the ones who started it. That green-haired bastard was fucking arrogant and acted like a big brother in front of us. He said he was the relative of the Mad Python Mercenary Group's vice commander, the largest mercenary group in Jiaowei City. You're pretty good at cursing, but you don't have any skills. You were slapped to the ground by Xian. That's right. This green-haired guy was stunned by Xian's slap and didn't get up for a long time. After that, the people from their academy went crazy and attacked us. Fuck. If it wasn't for the fact that they had the advantage in numbers, we would have fought them to the end last night." Mentor Ma smacked the student's head with the back of his hand and scolded in exasperation. "The academy sent you out to train, not to cause trouble and fight all day long. Teacher, fighting is also a form of training. Alright, we're just around the corner. If you have anything to say, we'll talk when we get back." Mentor Ma chuckled and said to Arbor, "Student Xiao, don't worry. Student Xian and the others are fine. You call this nothing serious?" The little stoic's small stoic face was taut as she expressionlessly picked up the little fatty's drooping arm. Little fatty immediately squealed like a pig being slaughtered. Mentor Ma's face turned green. "What's going on? You weren't injured that badly just now." "Mentor, the people from Jiaowei Academy just came to beat us up," several students shouted, filled with righteous indignation. Chapter 4100. Right. That green-haired guy brought a few experts and gave little fatty a good beating. We couldn't even stop him in time. "Oh my waist. Qi Xianxian clutched her waist and waved her hand to have the students supporting her move more gently. Jojo, Your Highness the Crown Prince, you're here. Qi Xianxian forced a smile at the little stoic with a bitter expression. Don't pull a long face, I'm fine. Don't listen to their nonsense, it's not that serious. Which green-haired guy? Arbor asked irritably. Did he have nothing better to do? It wasn't enough that he finished a match yesterday. And he even specially came to fight today? What the heck? Little Fatty shifted to the side and supported Qi Xianxian to sit down. He huffed. If it weren't for Duanmu and the others being in closed-door cultivation, how could we have lost to them? Arbor knitted his brows in displeasure and took out his needle bag. Xianxian, I'll give you 2 injections first. Everyone watched from the side as the young crown prince consort swiftly pierced Qi Xuanxuan's waist twice before throwing an elixir to Qi Xianxian. Within a few minutes, Xuanxuan's sprained waist healed a lot, and she could stand up and move around freely. Don't sprain it again today. Arbor frowned as he glanced at her. How can I sprain it again and again? Qi Xianxian felt much more energetic. She paced back and forth in the room a few times and shouted in a huff. If it weren't for that green-haired guy bringing a group of people to make trouble for us, how could I have sprained my waist? She was angry just thinking about it. At that time, everyone was in closed-door cultivation in their own rooms. Green-haired guy suddenly barged in and quickly found her and little Fatty from Iridescent Peak Court. He called them without a second word and didn't even give them a chance to react. The competition was tomorrow, and everyone was making the best use of their remaining time to train and cultivate in closed-door cultivation. Who knew that such a thing would happen? When some of the people who were training or in seclusion were awakened and rushed out, little Fatty was protecting Qi Xianxian. He was surrounded and beaten up by a few people. His arm was even broken. The most hateful thing was that when the green-haired man saw that the people from the royal school had come out, he immediately led his men and left the manor, disappearing without a trace. As she spoke, the little stoic also treated the little Fatty's broken arm. She held his arm and moved it back and forth. How do you feel? I don't feel anything. The little Fatty laughed honestly and quickly flattered. Jojo, your medical skills are really good. Jojo's expression was a little scary. Fatty thought that it would be better for him to behave himself. Humph. Arbor glanced at him expressionlessly. Why didn't you use the talisman? It wasn't like she didn't throw them talismans. How could they not know how to throw offensive and defensive talismans when they were beaten to such a state? Fatty shrunk his neck. I felt that, unless it was absolutely necessary. He bit his lower lip and hastily shut his mouth under the little stoic's severe gaze. When our dear Qi Xianxian saw this, she hastily came up to smooth things over. Jojo, it's actually nothing. She scratched her head. The other party didn't want our lives. Arbor swept them a glance and knew what these 2 fools were thinking. They felt that they couldn't rely on external objects for everything. Whether it was pills or talismans, how could they not have them on them? Chapter 4101. They all had them, and there were quite a few of them, so it wasn't a problem to use them freely. However, they were thinking that they could resolve this kind of trivial matter themselves, and didn't need to rely on external forces for everything. Are you idiots? I have no objections to you fighting in a fair environment. But we're being ganged up on right now. Ganged up on? The little stoic irritably poked the little Fatty's head and roared. Are you a sandbag? Why can they casually beat you guys up to vent their anger, just because they're unhappy? That's right. Don't you know how to call for help? We're all in the room. Call out and everyone will come out. Let's see if they still dare to be so arrogant. Jiawei City doesn't have a rule that forbids fighting before the competition. They dare to be so unbridled, because they're certain that nothing will happen even if they beat you guys up. Xiaomu coldly surveyed them from head to toe. What exactly did you guys do? They actually came to gang up on you guys? We didn't do anything. Qi Xianxian bashfully glanced at the little stoic. The little stoic. She kept feeling that there was something wrong with these 2 fellows. Emo Lien stifled her laughter and walked up to pull her wife's small hand. She glanced at Qi Xianxian and the little Fatty. Why aren't you confessing? Confess, we'll confess everything. The little Fatty hastily nodded and said, Nothing major actually happened at Sikong Tavern yesterday. We just quarreled with green hair a bit. Many students around them looked at them curiously, and one of them said, "Speaking of which, yesterday's incident was really a bit strange. When you guys started quarreling with green hair, and the others, we were watching a vaudeville performance. In the end, they didn't know why they started quarreling with each other. Moreover, they even came to their encampment afterwards. It had freaking happened a day ago, how bizarre. Speaking of enmity, there didn't seem to be any. They only chased the fatty to the encampment, and beat him up." The little fatty smiled good-naturedly, and reached out to hold Qi Xuanxuan's hand. He then said indignantly, "Speaking of which, it's all that brother's fault. Everything was fine yesterday, but you all went to watch the vaudeville show. Xian and I were eating in a corner of the tavern, and we didn't offend anyone." Suddenly that guy said sourly, "Yo, you're so fat, but you can still find a pretty girl." I replied to him, "You're a single dog. What are you bullshitting about? I'll beat you up if you continue to bullshit." Everyone was speechless. Emolien's lips twitched. Then, without saying a word, that brother actually drew his sword and attacked me. Little Fatty said angrily, "Do you think he's crazy? He even said that I insulted him? How did I insult him? Didn't I just call him a single dog?" Arbor looked at them expressionlessly. His eyes kept looking at their intertwined hands. "So, you two have decided? Why didn't he get to the point earlier?" All the students revealed an expression that said, "So that's how it is. Fuck, so he was beaten for showing off his love. Hee hee. Isn't this a classic example of abusing a single dog and getting bitten by a dog apui? Who's the dog?" Arbor was silent for a moment. "Then why did they come to beat you up today? Everything about this incident was strange, alright? Speaking of which, they had already beaten them up yesterday. Shouldn't they have vented their anger? Why did they do this today?" Qi Xianxian quickly said. Before the fatty left, he told them the address of this place, and told them to challenge him if they were unhappy. Chapter 4102. So that's how it was. No wonder they were so accurate, and even knew to look for Fatty Sun, and the others in iridescent peak court. Everyone couldn't help but facepalm and stare at student Ko Hongwen, as if they were looking at an idiot. The little fatty rubbed his nose and said embarrassedly, "Didn't I, cough yesterday? Even though I lost, I didn't lose." "So you were the one who sent yourself to be beaten up?" The little fatty angrily pulled Qi Xuanxuan's hand. "Who did we disturb when we were eating in the tavern? He was the one who came up to tease my wife. If I wasn't beaten up by the crowd, would I have lost?" Arbor expressionlessly looked at the little fatty for a while and patted his shoulder. This man, what a combative creature. Most importantly, he wanted to keep up appearances and suffer. No wonder he didn't want to use talismans. He wanted to protect his wife with his own strength, although he was childish and a little stupid. There was an indescribable feeling of love. Arbor's tense little face relaxed a little. "Remember to tell me if you feel uncomfortable." "Okay." The little fatty heaved a sigh of relief. He didn't know why, but he didn't dare to speak when Sir Jojo's face was tense. "Point him out later. Let's go beat him up too," Arbor said expressionlessly. After all, there had to be reciprocation. Otherwise, would they be beaten up for nothing? Everyone. The little girl was indeed someone who would seek revenge for the smallest grievance. This was clearly a disturbance caused by abusing single people. The other person's heart was already hurt. Did she want him to be hurt physically too? However, seeing that the stoic face still didn't look good, everyone shut their mouths in unison. "Tomorrow's competition?" Yes. "Student Xiao, let me explain the competition rules to you," Mentor Ma said with a smile. Arbor nodded and got up to pull Emolien to sit down. "How bad are the rules? Let's talk about it." Mentor Ma couldn't help but twitch his mouth and hurriedly said, "It's not bad. It's definitely not bad." The Tianyuan competition was divided into 6 arenas. The competition would be held simultaneously. To be able to obtain the right to fight in the main arena, one had to be one of the top 100 seeded contestants. Previously, after Feng Mulin's preliminary round, the Royal School had eliminated 10,000 students. This time, only 3,000 students would be able to enter the final round. Fortunately, Dean Yun had his own large manor in Jiawei City. It was more than enough to accommodate over 3,000 teachers and students. Otherwise, with so many teachers and students coming to Jiawei City, it would be difficult to find an inn. This competition is very simple. It's just a point system. If you win one match, you'll get 10 points. If you win 5 matches in a row, you'll get an additional 50 points. 10 consecutive wins plus 200 points. The more consecutive victories you have, the more points you'll get. The details will be announced on the points board during the competition. Correspondingly, the deduction of points is also very fierce. Consecutive losses will also result in additional deduction of points. Mentor Ma chuckled as he continued. Therefore, in this competition, there might be a phenomenon of a few thousand people with high scores and a series of deductions for low scores. Students work hard. There are no restrictions in the competition, so the degree of freedom is very high. In other words, as long as you have the means, just use them. Hearing this, Arbor looked at Mentor Ma in astonishment. That's strange. The rules of the Tianyuan competition seem to be very generous. Who was the generous person who came up with these rules? Students, make good use of your remaining time and work hard. Tomorrow morning, Mentor Ma will be back to bring you to the arena. Chapter 4103. Arbor followed the little fatty and Qi Xianxian, who were chatting and laughing along the way. When she arrived at the entrance of Iridescent Peak Court, she suddenly stopped in her tracks. Suddenly, a thin figure appeared in front of her. She staggered a step before quickly stabilizing herself. This guy looked around in bewilderment. When he came back to his senses, he saw the young Crown Prince Consort standing in front of him. He jumped in fright and hastily bowed. Crown Prince Consort? Arbor nodded expressionlessly. Where am I? Strange, shouldn't he be in the Mu family's territory? Hey young man, you're a child of the Mu family? The little fatty walked up curiously and patted him on the shoulder. This guy hurriedly nodded, then looked at the young Crown Princess in confusion. Crown Princess, may I ask, where is this place? This is Jiawei City. The other party immediately showed an even more confused expression. Probably 10,000 curses galloping through his heart. Fuck. How did he end up in a dangerous place like Jiawei City's black market, after training in Chaoyang Pavilion for a while? It was said that there were no rules in Jiawei City. People who came and went spoke with their fists. Whoever had the bigger fist had the loudest voice. Every day. Who knew how many people died unnatural deaths because of picking fights? May I ask, why am I here? The thin man asked with a strange expression. Arbor was silent. Emma Lien beside her couldn't help but twitch her mouth. She held back her laughter and said, You're Mu Jiating, right? Ah, that's right. Mu Jiating naturally recognized the Crown Prince. He hurriedly saluted the Crown Prince. Your Highness, this one is Mu Jiating of the Mu family's side branch. A while ago, this one was fortunate enough to go to Chaoyang Pavilion set up by ancestor Chaoyang to train, and made it all the way to the 49th floor. Mu Jiating seemed to be very gratified. Speaking up to hear, he couldn't help but smile, then continued. I wonder how the others are doing now. By the way, Crown Princess, you also went to Chaoyang Pavilion at that time, right? I wonder which floor the Crown Princess made it to. 99. Mu Jiating's mouth instantly opened so wide that a duck egg could be stuffed in. Excuse me, may I know how many people are in the top management? 99. Jojo replied expressionlessly. You've been in Chaoyang restaurant for 2 months. The others have already come out. That's right. He was the one who had entered Chaoyang Tower with Jojo, and had only just completed the challenge Mu Jiating. It wasn't that Jojo, Sama wanted to ridicule this guy, but this guy's personality was too slow. Even a turtle could crawl faster than him, okay? He wasn't afraid that others would laugh at him, because this guy was so slow that even the heavens couldn't tolerate it. Sir Jojo even went to Chaoyang restaurant to secretly observe him. He realized that this guy was seriously trying to break through the levels, working hard, cultivating, breaking through, and working even harder. He was speechless. The reason why this guy was slow was because every time he cleared a level, he would go into seclusion to cultivate for a while. Before he recovered all his spiritual power, this guy definitely wouldn't rashly rush to the next level. Therefore, the higher he went, the more dangerous the place was. Chaoyang Pavilion was full of traps, and it was very difficult to break through the array core. This guy relied on his tenacity and willpower that ordinary people didn't have, and steadily advanced. With this strange talent, he reached the 49th floor. Chapter 4104. In fact, after reaching the 40th floor, this guy would need 3 to 5 days to recover his spiritual energy every time. To tell the truth, Arbor completely forgot about this oddball later on. After all, they went to challenge Morning Sun Pavilion before her wedding on June 6th. It was freaking the end of July now. It would be weird if she remembered this guy after that. The little stoic allowed him to stay in Morning Sun Pavilion. It had nothing to do with her, whether he wanted to challenge it until the end of time. Until just now, when she suddenly sensed this person being sent flying out of Morning Sun Pavilion, the little stoic hastily stopped and directly pulled his flying body in front of her. Mu Jiating simply didn't pay attention to where he flew out from. He only thought that he came out of Morning Sun Pavilion and was directly flung outside. He didn't notice that his body had stopped in mid-air in the star domain for a split second. A steady stream of divine power cleansed his meridians, causing his entire body to involuntarily tremble. He only faintly smelled the salty and moist scent of the sea breeze. Then why did I appear here? The little fatty looked sympathetically at Mu Jiating, this pitiful child. He knew that his little stoic definitely couldn't be bothered to explain to this guy, so he patted his shoulder. You can stay here for the time being. You'll return with us in a few days. Don't worry, it won't be too dangerous. I'll take you out to drink tonight. Qi Xianxian pinched her nose and glanced at him. But before that, you better wash yourself clean first. Mu Jiating turned around and saw that the little stoic and His Highness the Crown Prince had long abandoned him and left with disdainful expressions. Only then did he realize that his clothes were stuffed with filth. His perfectly fine white training clothes were so black that its original color couldn't be discerned. No, my apologies. Brother, can you bring me to my room to bathe and change? Come with me. The little fatty smiled enthusiastically. Oh, that's right. I still have to ask the Crown Princess later. She actually made it out of Morning Sun Pavilion's 99th floor. I wonder how long it took her. Oh, you can just ask me about this. The little fatty's face was beaming, giving this guy a knowing blow. Jojo spent 1 day and 1 night to reach the 99th floor of Morning Sun Pavilion. Her name is now written on the stone tablet in front of your Morning Sun Pavilion. The little fatty smiled brilliantly. Morning Sun Pavilion was currently located on an island on Fish Orchid Planet. Who didn't know of the little girl's brave feat of breaking through Morning Sun Pavilion's 99th floor? Mu Jiating's jaw dropped. Morning Sun Pavilion. Morning Sun Pavilion's residence. Morning Sun Pavilion's floor. Morning Sun Pavilion. Morning Sun Pavilion's Morning Sun Pavilion. The little stoic looked around in displeasure before looking up at Emolien and saying, that guy didn't come. Morning sun. Morning sun. Morning sun. Morning sun. Morning sun. Morning palace. Morning night. Something happened in the palace, and it will probably take a few days to deal with it. Will you be okay? Xiao Mu looked up at him. There is indeed something, but it's not that he's in trouble. It's that the Zhangzhou Emperor is about to die. Emolien whispered into her ear. Suddenly a laugh was heard. Ah, I was wondering why the magpies were chirping this morning. It turns out they saw my Jojo. Prince Emo irritably threw him a cold glance. Eldest young Sir Qin blinked innocently at him and asked sarcastically, why didn't little fourth Duan come? Chapter 4105. Arbor glanced at him and suddenly discovered a row of lackeys standing behind eldest Qin, who looked like a smiling tiger. He habitually ignored the Omega Kotoku, who had an icy expression and was as slender as a bamboo. Behind this guy, there was actually HM. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 shit. Both those he had seen before and those he hadn't seen before. The entire Qin family's youngsters must have all come. The little stoic expressionlessly swept a glance over them. Her eyeballs merely swiveled in a circle before she immediately retracted her gaze. Was Joe City's scenery unique? She had actually attracted the entire Qin family here? When Qingjio saw her, his eyes clearly brightened, and he chuckled as he skipped forward. Jojo, when little Qingjio saw Prince Mo's icy gaze sweeping over him, he hastily corrected himself. Crown Princess, why don't I see Duan Yu? The little stoic was clearly in a bad mood. She glanced at him, and reluctantly responded out of politeness, he didn't come. As a result, these two words seemed to open Qingjio's long-sealed chatterbox, and he immediately fired off a barrage of questions. Was he delayed by something? Oh right, I heard that something happened in Songzhou, right? Did something happen to Duan Yu's mother? Duan Yu will be fine, right? Say, should we find a chance to go to Songzhou and see Io? A strong force suddenly pushed Qingjio away from behind. Alright, don't worry about it. Whether His Highness Prince Chen of Songzhou is fine or not, it has nothing to do with you. Don't block the way. A rude and unreasonable voice interrupted Qingjio's words. The person strode boldly to Prince Mo and the little crown princess, and sized them up. A strange smile suddenly appeared on his face. This humble one is Prince Danhua of the barbarian tribe. Greetings to His Highness the Crown Prince of the Divine Province, and the Crown Princess. This person held his hand across his chest. Although he saluted, his attitude was extremely arrogant and rude. When he spoke, he kept his chin slightly raised, as if he was looking at people with his nostrils. Previously, this prince has been training in the vicinity of Jiawei City, but I haven't seen any of you. That dark and sturdy Prince Kuawa sized up the little crown princess again, and a malicious smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. It is said that previously, my brother Zulu was beaten up by you. Eldest young Sir Qin couldn't help but rub his forehead. In the blink of an eye, before Prince Chaohua could finish his words, his body strangely flew into the air. Everyone around couldn't help but twitch their mouths. With a loud bang, Yin Piaomiao, who was walking out of the room, looked speechlessly at the figure that abruptly crashed into the wall beside him. He silently glanced in the little stoic's direction. The stoic face's gaze was serene and unruffled, as if the one who sent the person flying with a kick just now wasn't himself. Cough. Dean Yin pretended to cough and gave Elder Ke, whose mouth was twitching, a look. Elder Ke raised his hand and motioned for the two disciples behind him to help Prince Chaohua, whose head was covered in blood up. The other party's head was bleeding from this kick, and he was so angry that his entire body was trembling. His body swayed, and he was a bit disoriented even after being helped up. You. Prince Chaohua's face darkened as he lowered his head to look at a small footprint on his chest. He was so angry that he couldn't even speak clearly. Chapter 4106. Headmaster, she kicked people for no reason. How can the academy tolerate the existence of such a person? Yin Piaomiao coughed lightly and walked over with Elder Ke and the others. Arbor's gaze landed on Yin Fiang, who was walking behind him. Last time, she was so angry that she stayed at the academy for a while before leaving with her master. Before leaving the academy, she didn't even say goodbye to Yin Piaomiao and the others, nor did she see Yin Fiang. Logically, she wouldn't blame Yin Fiang. But emotionally, how could she not blame him? Blame him for hiding the truth. If they trusted her more from the start and told her the truth, she wouldn't have to take such a detour now. Thankfully, she already had a way to remedy the situation. The next step was to refine the restoration pill and let the 3 puppies grow into holy beasts. When she thought of this, Arbor massaged her small head with a headache. It was easy to think about but extremely difficult to do. Especially how to let these 3 puppies recover their holy beast form. This was probably going to take a while. And what she lacked right now was time. After the soul return pill she ate last time lost its effect, her master's remaining strand of soul could only last for another year at most. Thankfully, Morong Sun was currently in her star domain and was surrounded by dense divine energy. In addition, she used the soul calming frost jade to lock her remnant soul. Morong Sun would be able to last for a while. No matter what, she wouldn't allow anything to happen to Morong Sun. Taking a deep breath, Xiao Mu remained silent as she watched Yin Fei slowly walk up to her. Jojo, let's talk alone. Yin Fiang sighed. Arbor glanced at him and nodded. Just as she was about to leave with Headmaster Yin Fiang, She saw the blood-drenched horse-eater squeezing forward with great effort and angrily shouting, "You can't leave!" "Headmaster, what do you mean? Didn't you see that she attacked first?" Yin Piaomiao speechlessly glanced at this guy. She originally didn't want to interfere in this matter, but this barbarian tribe's people were all a bit rash and careless. If she ignored him, this matter would definitely continue without end. Is there some misunderstanding? What misunderstanding could there be? Prince Dewa shouted angrily. This arrogant woman, she kicked me in the chest just now. Everyone saw it. If you don't believe me, ask them. They. Prince Dewa's finger slid past the group of young masters of the Qin estate, before pointing at Ming Yasi, Dao, and the others who were watching the show from the beginning. Everyone had a strange look on their faces. They glanced at him, but didn't say anything. Yin Piaomiao looked at the situation in front of her, and was speechless. She cleared her throat and asked as usual, "Did any of you here see student Qiao kicking student Hua? Everyone looked at Principal Yin expressionlessly, and no one paid any attention to him. It was hard for this dean to smile and nod when no one paid any attention to him. He then said, "That's great. Since it's just a misunderstanding, let's get ready to set off now. Students, time waits for no one. If we're late, who knows what the other party will do?" Someone looked at Dewa sympathetically, thinking that he was about to explode from anger. Sure enough, Chao's face was filled with rage, and he wanted to say something, but Dean Yun waved his hand and ordered 2 elders to drag him away for treatment. Chapter 4107. Arbor followed Yin Fiang to a side room. Once the room's door closed, Yin Fiang turned around and said apologetically to her, "Sorry, Jojo, you should blame me. I acted on my own, and didn't think twice before acting. During this period of time, I have thought about a lot of things, and I have also realized my mistakes." Arbor raised her hand to stop him from speaking. Her clear eyes stared at the slightly pale man in front of her. Both sides of this person's hair had turned white in a short period of time. It could be seen how big of an impact Morong Sun's incident had on him. Arbor couldn't help but sigh in her heart. She said to him solemnly, "Listen to me first. Master, there's actually still hope." She should have told them earlier, but the bit of resentment in her heart made her not want to say anything to them at that time. Yin Fiang, whose complexion was originally slightly pale, looked like he was struck by something when he heard this. He instantly focused his gaze on Arbor with excitement on his face. Really, during this period of time, he buried himself in his study and searched for all sorts of treatment methods after the soul-returning pill lost its effectiveness. Unfortunately, he came up empty-handed. Unexpectedly, the little girl already found a treatment method. "Headmaster, although I have a lot of complaints about you in my heart, most of them are still grateful," the little stoic said bluntly. "After the battle at Holy Water Sect, if you didn't arrive in time and seal her in the ice coffin, I might have never seen her again. Perhaps I wouldn't have been able to see her again in this lifetime. Jojo, can you really forgive me?" Yin Fiang asked rather emotionally. Xiaomu nodded. "I've never blamed you." Yin Fiang knew. He knew everything. Even though the little girl never blamed him, the regret in his heart was about to drown him. "Are you willing to believe me? Headmaster, are you willing to try and give me some time to work hard?" "Of course I believe you." Yin Fiang nodded repeatedly and said, "I was foolish before. Now that I know the truth, I naturally won't continue to be foolish." "How can a pill alchemist's growth be linked to age?" Yin Fiang sighed softly and said, "I was too conceited in the past." Prince Emma was right. There was no lack of geniuses in this world. It was obvious that Jojo was a genius in alchemy. Her growth and future were limitless. "Then wait a bit," Arbor said softly. "I will definitely wake Morong Sun up." "Definitely." The little girl spoke resolutely. In that instant, Yin Fiang felt like he saw Morong Sun's shadow in her. There was a lump in his throat. He smiled to cover up the slight sadness in his heart. "Your master will definitely wake up." "He definitely will." When Yin Fiang followed the little girl out of the room, Yin Piaomiao clearly felt that her elder brother's expression had relaxed a lot. His entire body wasn't as tense as before. He heaved a sigh of relief and couldn't help but feel somewhat comforted. Although the little girl had a stoic expression on her face all day long and seemed to be emotionless, she was actually very delicate and soft. What a good child, Yin Piamiao thought with gratification. Dean, what do you mean by this? Why did you send someone to drag me away? Dean! The barbarian tribe's Prince Nuwa's angry roar came from behind. Yin Piamiao waved her hand, as if she didn't hear him. Prince Nuwa is tired. Please ask him to rest. Chapter 4108. Yin Piamiao turned around and stared at the students in front of him with an admonishing expression. He earnestly exhorted, "Students, we're currently in Jiawei City, so we can't act in Wind Thunder City's territory. That's because we need to be careful and vigilant at all times. We need to take precautions at all times. We don't know when someone who doesn't get along with you will suddenly pop out and attack us. Our motto is to not cause trouble, but we absolutely won't be afraid of trouble, understand?" The group of students from the royal school replied with an "oh." Yin Piamiao was immediately dissatisfied. He stood in the air and waved his arm. "Why is everyone so dispirited? You're about to enter Jiawei Arena right now. Every one of you represents the Imperial Academy's honor, understand? Show some spirit. Everyone pull yourself together. Understand, students?" "Oh." Everyone grumpily responded again. But this time, their voices soared to the heavens. Yin Piamiao beamed with joy and nodded. "Since you understand, then let's set off." Everyone followed the group out the door like a wisp of smoke. Yin Piamiao was all smiles as he hastily drew close to the little stoics group. "Jojo, have you made things clear with Dean Yunfei?" Arbor expressionlessly glanced at him and nodded his small head reluctantly. "You're truly a good child." Dean Yun lovingly reached out to rub the little fellow's head, but Prince Mo, who was glaring covetously from the side, stared at him until he retracted his hand. The dean resentfully glanced at Mo Lien and coughed lightly, saying, "Student Mo, Student Duan didn't come, so we'll have to rely on you to take first place on the Heaven Origin ranking this time." Mo Lien glanced at him and said indifferently, "I'll rely on my wife." The little stoic waved her small hand, disdainfully sweeping away a faint fragrance that drifted in front of her. She didn't even bat an eyelid as she nodded and said, "I'll do my best." Dean Yin couldn't help but be stupefied. The little girl's alchemy Dao was indeed exceptional, but if it was in battle? With Prince Mo here, do you think you still have a chance of winning? Most importantly, this little expression of going with the flow and taking it for granted somehow made him feel like he was being cheated. Elder Ku, who was standing at the side, looked at Dean Yin as if he was looking at an idiot. He secretly pinched his arm. "Are you stupid? How could Prince Mo win against his own wife? With your intellect, how could you have been the principal of the royal school for so many years?" Dean Yun came to a sudden realization and hurriedly said, "Oh," followed by a series of awkward laughs. His little eyes secretly peeked at the little girl, and with an expression of trying to find something to talk about, he pretended to be relaxed and asked, "Ah, right, earlier why did student Xiao suddenly make things difficult for student Yuehua?" The little stoic's face darkened, and she grumbled, "His shifty eyes have been staring at me the entire time." The little guy stretched out 2 fingers and gestured the teleportation distance in front of his eyes. "Look, just stare at me like this. I saw it clearly. He kept staring at me. He's an idiot." Everyone. Dean Yin instantly felt like his balls were hurting. Why did he ask such an outlandish question for no reason? Most importantly, the question was outlandish, but the answer was even more outlandish. Dean Yin looked at the little stoic in front of him with a headache. Chapter 4109. He kept feeling that the little stoic's visit to Holy Auspicious Arena was the true beginning of the disaster. Those people harboring malicious intentions in Holy Auspicious Arena were probably going to suffer. The little stoic expressionlessly waved her hand again. Her elegant brows involuntarily creased, and her footsteps unwittingly slowed down. The person walking at the front of the group also paused. When eldest young Sir Qin saw this, he waved his small fan in amusement. He moved closer to Arbor and asked, "What's wrong, Jojo?" The little girl sniffed and confirmed that the fragrance didn't come from this guy's body. When Qin Xian saw this, He also hastily lifted his sleeve to sniff himself. It was a refreshing sweet scent. Other than that, there were no other random fragrances. It doesn't stink, this guy said plausibly. Yin Piamiao couldn't resist twitching her eyebrows. Just as she was about to speak, she saw a group turn the corner and jingle jingle. The fragrant wind was coming from that group. There were all kinds of scents, rich and fragrant, as if all the fragrances in the world had congealed in this group. For a moment, the little stoic's expression was grave, as if she was facing a great enemy. Eldest young Sir Chin naturally smelled it as well, and he hastily moved closer to the little stoic while exclaiming, "Wah, Jojo, are these fragrances poisonous? I feel dizzy. Have I been poisoned?" Arbor expressionlessly slapped his paw away and sprinkled some powder next to him with a flick of his finger, instantly dispersing most of the strange fragrances coming from the other side. Eldest young Sir Chin wasn't pretending this time. When these fragrances were mixed together, it truly was a very strong poison. It wasn't good for people to smell these scents in this kind of environment for a long time. Meng Meio's expression changed drastically. Fifth young Sir Chin, who was standing next to Ninth Chin, also had a similar change in expression. He recognized Meng Meiyu at a glance. This was precisely that disgusting woman he encountered in Feng Mulan, when his arms and legs were crippled. The fifth young sir actually didn't realize that he had actually moved and silently moved closer to Jojo. Omega Kotoku, on the other hand, seemed to have noticed it and glanced at him. At this moment, Arbor scattered some medicinal powder to disperse the messy smell. Then, he looked at Meng Meio's team with disgust. Meng Meio's group consisted of about 30 women. Each of them had a graceful and enchanting figure, and their attire was very revealing. In broad daylight, with her arms and legs exposed, a strong seductive wind blew in his face. Before Meng Meiyu could say anything, a woman beside her with dark green eyeliner and an extremely enchanting appearance looked towards Prince Mo and the group of people from the Qin estate with bright eyes. Wow, so many handsome men. Mo Lian and eldest Qin moved almost at the same time and stood behind Sir Jojo. It was the same recipe and the same taste. Eldest young Sir Chin couldn't help but turn to glance at Prince Mo and inexplicably recall that period of time on Seikong planet. He didn't know when he had developed this habit, but whenever he encountered a woman he didn't want to deal with, he would habitually hide behind Sir Jojo, and every time, Sir Jojo would never disappoint them. Eldest young Sir Chin couldn't resist raising his hand to cover his face. He saw the little stoic take a step forward and stretch out 2 fingers again. In this strange momentary silence, she made a gesture of communicating with her eyes. Chapter 41:10. What are you looking at? Arbor's expression chilled, and he suddenly flew into a rage. Who are you people? The little stoic had clearly forgotten about Meng Meiyu. Vice Cult Master Meng's legs were trembling uncontrollably. In the end, the stoic face actually didn't remember her. The main reason was that this stoic face truly intimidated her too much. Recalling that time in Phoenix Woods, she couldn't help but curse a string of fuck when she recalled that pot of all-nourishment soup afterward. Not only did she lose her arms and legs, but she also found an ugly and old man in the woods to dispel the effects of the all-nourishment soup and fought him several hundred rounds. Whenever she recalled it afterward, she would vomit incessantly. But she couldn't choose at that time, nor did she have the time to choose. If she didn't quickly dispel the effects of the medicine, she would die an undignified death. That little stoic girl's methods were truly sinister enough. Before she left, she even tossed her a pot of improved all-nourishment soup. She truly caused her to suffer. When enemies met, their eyes blazed with hatred. Meng Meiyu really wanted to rush up and tear that girl apart, but she actually cowered. She understood very well that this current body actually had a strange fear reaction the instant she saw this girl. She was very scared now. The little girl was young, but she felt that her methods were very cruel and terrifying. Move aside, don't block the way, Arbor said irritably, sensing those women's gazes all drifting towards her. The little stoic was very displeased. What are you looking at me for? Everyone. Meng Meiyu was momentarily speechless. In the end, it was the green-eyed girl next to Meng Meiyu who giggled and said, "Oh, so you're from the Royal Academy. We're from the City of Shadows, Devil Star Academy. Aren't you from the demonic cult? Yun Piaomiao speechlessly interrupted that girl. What Devil Star Academy? It was simply the demonic cult, alright? Vice Cult Master Meng. Your demonic cult also came to participate in the Heavenly Yuan ranking competition this time? Yun Piaomiao asked with a frown. Could it be that the other academies would all agree? Headmaster Yun's words are incorrect. These are indeed the children of the Devil Star Academy. Meng Meiyou's face was cold as she pointed to a group of similarly revealing girls. The gazes of these girls all fell on Prince Mo, Mu Xingchen, Duan Muqing, and the young masters of the Qin estate. Their beautiful eyes were full of tender feelings. They didn't hide the ambition and desire in their eyes at all. Seeing this, Yun Piaomiao was a little amused. When was the Devil Star Academy established? It must have been established for the sake of the Heavenly Yuan ranking competition. Fine, there was nothing much to say. Dean Yun led the group of people from his academy forward. The Saint Beautiful battle stage was right in front of them. In addition to the Devil Star Academy and the Royal Academy, there were also several other teams from different academies. Due to the large number of people, the gates of the Saint Auspicious Battle Arena were already wide open. However, the group of girls from the Devil Star Academy insisted on squeezing together with the students from the Royal Academy. And for a moment, it was extremely congested. She watched as that green-eyed lady pounced into eldest young Sir Qin's arms. The little stoic practically acted out of conditioned reflex and directly sent her flying with a bam. For a moment, the numerous students from the various academies who were entering stopped in their tracks at the same time. They looked at Sir Jojo strangely, as if they were looking at a female guardian deity with monstrous strength. Chapter 41:11. Sir Jojo's little face was also a bit stupefied. His eyes turned, and he expressionlessly looked at the crowd around him. Everyone's expressions were rather strange. Big brother Mu Xingchen even coughed to cover his laughter. Sir Jojo lowered his head and glanced at the leg he had just lifted, then turned to look at the green eyeliner woman who had flown out and crashed onto the ground, sprawling on her back. It was inexplicably strange. He didn't know when this Sir Jojo had this kind of conditioned reflex. Once a pitiful little asked him for help. His instinctive reaction was to kick the stoic face turned away and pretended she hadn't done anything. She held her husband's hand and walked into the arena. Cough, cough, cough. Yun Piaomiao was speechless as he coughed dryly. He hurriedly called out to the 3,000 students behind him. Okay, everyone line up and go in. Don't make a fuss. Everyone rolled their eyes at the dean. Who the hell was making a fuss? The person making a fuss already went in, and you didn't even say anything. You told these innocent people to stop making a fuss. Humph. Yun Piaomiao knew he was in the wrong. He rubbed his nose and chuckled dryly before changing the topic. That green eyeliner woman had fallen quite hard this time. However, everyone was a cultivator, so a fall wouldn't hurt her bones or tendons. When she got up from the ground in a flustered and exasperated manner, rushing to settle the score with Arbor's group had already gone to the arena. Meng Meiyu hastily grabbed her arm and said with a sullen face, "Don't go over." "Sister, what do you mean?" Meng Meiyu's expression became extremely unsightly. She had suffered such a big loss in front of so many people. How could she endure it? "Meiyu, I'm doing this for your own good." Meng Meiyu whispered in her ear and patted her arm. Let's go in first." Although Meng Meiyu's expression was still very unsightly, her eyes revealed traces of panic and uncertainty. "Sister, is what you said true? The woman who schemed against you in Phoenix Grove last time was that stoic face just now?" Meng Meiyu nodded solemnly. Meng Meiyu immediately couldn't help but want to curse. "If that's the case, then we can't let her go. Sister, let's find a way to get rid of her here. Don't act rashly." Meng Meiyu looked at her younger sister worriedly and shook her head. Before Sect Master left, he instructed us not to cause trouble everywhere. "Meiyu, you'd better rein in your spoiled and unbridled temper. We can't afford to offend everyone in this world." At least in Meng Meiyu's opinion, that little stoic was quite terrifying. "Sister, you're scared by that woman." Meng Meiyu sneered and couldn't help curling her lips. "Even if that woman is powerful, we can still ambush her when she's unprepared. Big sister, look at you. It's not that I want to lecture you, but when you saw that stoic face just now, your legs started to tremble. Hearing Meng Meiyu's ridicule, Meng Meiyu's face instantly darkened. What nonsense are you talking about? Isn't that the case? Meng Meiyu harumphed. Sister, I'm also thinking of you other than that woman. Think about it. You've already been scared out of your mind by that stoic face. What good will it do for your future cultivation and growth? We can only let you rest easy in the future only by eliminating this mind demon of yours. Chapter 41:12. Xiao Qiao and her group had just walked into the arena when they were greeted by all kinds of noise and clamor. It was like a rolling heat wave that assaulted them. Xiao Mu really didn't like such a racket. Imperial Academy teachers and students, you've come late. Li Xiangbei, the glowing president of Jiawei Academy, walked up to greet them with a smile. Thousands of students followed behind him, all dressed in black high-waisted exercise robes with a name tag engraved with Jiawei Academy's emblem hanging from their waists. Yin Piaomiao put on a fake smile and walked up to greet Jiawei Academy's president, Li Xiangbei, as well as several instructors. Li Xiangbei's gaze naturally landed on Prince Mo, the little stoic, eldest young Qin, and the others standing in the front row of the group. As expected, Imperial Academy students are very valiant and heroic. The little stoic expressionlessly swept him a glance. That little taut expression on her face, it made the Jiawei Academy teachers and students, who saw her, feel an inexplicable pain in their balls. Is this little student also here to participate in the competition? A female instructor with an alluring figure from Jiawei Academy looked Arbor up and down, and asked with a smile. The little stoic honestly had directly attached 3 layers of aura-concealing talismans to her body. Her current cultivation level looked like she was just a little student at the 3rd level of the spirit realm. Yin Piaomiao looked meaningfully at the little stoic and nodded. This is our new student. That alluring instructor couldn't resist covering her mouth and laughing. She's also going to fight? Yin Piaomiao nodded gravely, pretending to be an extremely worried teacher. That's right. She also passed the preliminaries, so according to convention, she can also sign up to participate in the finals. She signed up. That instructor cast an astonished look at Arbor. They naturally knew the rules of the Imperial Academy's Heavenly Origin competition preliminaries. Every team had a normal person and a pill master. Although the Imperial Academy seemed to have 3,000 students, in reality, there wouldn't be more than 2,000 contestants who would actually fight. This was because some low-level students were lucky enough to pass the preliminaries with their teams and obtain the qualifications for the finals. But in reality, how could those pill masters and normal people possibly fight on stage? They usually came to spectate. However, the members who were able to obtain a spot in the finals, regardless of whether they played or not, would all receive a reward. At the end of the competition, there would naturally be a unified settlement of the resource rewards, which were said to be quite rich. Jojo, Sam looked at the enchanting teacher with an expressionless face. Suddenly, he saw a person standing behind her. The person had green hair, and the color of his hair was eye-catching. That green-haired kid looked to be about 18 or 19 years old. His head was really green. Is it that green-haired guy? The little stoic suddenly pointed behind the bewitching female mentor, eldest young Master Qin, and the others couldn't help twitching their mouths. The little fatty jumped up and nodded. That's him. This bastard actually dares to participate in the competition? The little stoic expressionlessly waved her hand. Hit. Many of the royal school students rushed forward, as if there was nothing left to live for. Without saying a word, they punched the green-haired kid and knocked him to the ground. The scene instantly became chaotic. At the same time, other than the people from Jiawei Academy and Devil Star Academy, there were also students from other academies. The people from the royal school suddenly attacked without any warning. Chapter 41:13. With so many royal school students attacking at the same time, the unlucky green-haired boy was pushed to the ground and beaten senseless with just a few punches. Everyone at the scene was stunned. Damn! The students from the royal school were indeed very fierce. How could they start fighting with the Great Way Academy students after just a few sentences? No, it should be a one-sided beating, all right. The other students from the Great Way Academy were not to be trifled with. They had only been stunned for a moment, but now that they had regained their senses, they naturally would not let the royal school off so easily. Seeing that the battle was about to break out, Principal Li and Principal Yin of the royal school stretched out their hands at the same time and drew out 2 god shields, blocking the students from both sides outside the shields. Stop! A deep and resounding voice rang out from the St. Jiwei battle arena. Everyone turned to look and saw a young man in a red robe striding towards them. Behind him, there were 2 rows of arena guards holding sharp knives and similarly wearing red cloaks. The group of people quickly spread out and pulled the green-haired boy up, separating the 2 sides of the quarreling people. So it's Captain Aolan. Principal Li and Principal Yin turned their heads at the same time and looked at the young man in the red robe, nodding at him indifferently. The young man also very politely clasped his fists towards the 2 principals. Fighting is prohibited in the battle arena. What fighting? It's our classmate who's being beaten up. A female student from the Great Way Academy shrieked. Was this person blind? Who was fighting each other? From the beginning to the end, it was the royal school students who attacked first. This group of mad dogs suddenly pounced on them and bit them. They did not even have time to retaliate before they were stopped by the 2 principals. Aolan looked at the female student, then turned to look in the direction of the royal school students. No matter what personal grudges you have between you, a splashing sound suddenly swept across the sky, followed by a crack sound. A swift and fierce vine whip slid across the air in front of everyone's eyes. Before Aolan could react, it landed heavily on the green-haired boy's arm, eliciting a pitiful cry from the other party. The green-haired boy, who was originally being supported by someone, was now sent flying by a whip. Everyone watched as he fell miserably, his face heavily hitting the ground. They couldn't help but gasp. Damn, seeing him fall like that from so far away. I feel pain for him. Olin abruptly turned to look at Arbor. Dean Li Xiangbei of Jiwei Academy, the enchanting female instructor, and the students all looked at Arbor as if they had seen a ghost. Why did you attack? A gift in return. Return gift. Aolan looked as if he had seen a ghost. He stared at the calm little girl in front of him. Return what gift? It's impolite not to reciprocate. Arbor looked at them coldly and calmly. Principal Li of the Jiwei Academy felt his eyelids twitch. Suddenly, he felt that the little stoic's gaze in front of him was sinister and ghostly, as if her entire body was emitting a chill. It inexplicably made a gust of wind start to leak from the bottom of his heart, making him feel very chilly. At this time, the green-haired boy had already been helped up. He pointed at the little fatty behind Arbor and gnashed his teeth in anger. It's you guys. The little fatty straightened his rotund body and waved his arm at him. When you broke my arm in the morning, you probably didn't expect that retribution would come so quickly. Chapter 41:14. The green-haired boy trembled in anger. He pointed at little fatty and shouted angrily, You! By now, Li Xiangbei could also tell that the Royal Academy didn't look for trouble with anyone, but directly targeted this boy. They probably had some personal grudge. He then looked at Yin Piaomiao with knitted brows and said good-naturedly with a smile, Headmaster, look at how troublesome this matter is. Since we're about to enter the competition, how about we put aside the other grudges for the time being? If there's anything that needs to be resolved, how about we settle it in this competition? After saying that, his gaze swept to the little stoic. The little stoic merely wanted to teach the green-haired boy a lesson. Now that she had taught him a lesson, she naturally couldn't be bothered to find fault with him. The green-haired boy broke little fatty's hand, so she hit him back. Wasn't this very fair? The little girl felt that this matter was already settled, so she couldn't be bothered to pay attention to Headmaster Li, who was looking at her. Yin Piaomiao twitched his mouth when he saw this. He had interacted with the little girl many times, so he could be considered to know a lot about the little girl's bizarre way of thinking. When he saw that the little girl wasn't speaking, and the atmosphere was oppressive and awkward, he involuntarily coughed and stepped forward to smooth things over. Headmaster Lee is right. If your school's teachers and students aren't convinced, you can naturally find our student Xiao to spar later. Since it's an unrestricted competition, cough cough. Headmaster Yin secretly dug a big hole for the little girl. Then it's not impossible for your school's students to freely challenge the little girl. It's fine as long as it's done according to the competition rules. Before an unrestricted challenge, you need to submit an application 10 matches in advance, and the other party must also agree. Otherwise, you'd have to rely on drawing lots to determine your ranking. Drawing lots to qualify for the unrestricted competition, and the guardian competition. The points for these three types of competitions were naturally different. Every student participating in the competition had a copy of the competition regulations and points system. When the time came, they just needed to follow these regulations and rules. After Yin Piamiao finished speaking, he discovered that the surroundings were silent. Mo Lian, Mu Xingqian, eldest Qin, Omega Kotoku, fifth Qin Yisi and the others all turned to look at Headmaster Yin. A certain headmaster who was originally speaking confidently, and with assurance inexplicably felt his hair stand on end under these sirs' gazes. The stoic man was expressionless as he flipped through the bylaws in his hands. He discovered that the bylaws did indeed contain the rules of the free challenge competition. Then I want to challenge you. The female student from Jiawei Academy who had spoken earlier, filled with righteous indignation, roared at Arbor. He looked like he was about to eat someone. Xiaomu immediately nodded, without any hesitation. Damn it, she didn't even have half a second to think about it. I accept. The little stoic called out crisply. The teachers and students of the royal school twitched their mouths. Mo Lian. Mu Xingqian almost choked on his own saliva. Looking at the female student from Jiawei Academy, he couldn't help but mourn for her in his heart. Just how brainless was this elder sister to propose a free challenge to the little stoic? The little stoic stepped forward. The students of Jiawei Academy immediately looked at her, as if they were facing a great enemy. Although this girl's cultivation seemed to be very low, the fact that she had broken Green Hair's arm with a single whip was still lingering in their minds. They felt that this person in front of them didn't seem like a soft persimmon that could be casually kneaded. The little stoic walked up to the girl and patted her shoulder with a gratified expression. You have good taste. Chapter 41:15. You simply have great foresight. You picked Sir Jojo as your opponent right off the bat. Miss, you're really not bad. You have foresight and fighting spirit. Your future is bound to be limitless. Not to mention Mo Lian. Even those who were slightly more familiar with Sir Jojo all read this from the little girl's gratified expression. Buffed after eldest young Sir Qin sputtered with laughter, he hastily opened his fan and covered his face. Shengjia Battle Arena's captain glanced at the little girl speechlessly and couldn't help but remind her. The competition hasn't started yet, so you can't privately make a challenge. Arbor abruptly turned to look at Captain Ao Lan and threw him a cold, displeased glance. Tap 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 tap. The little girl abandoned the crowd and walked away in a huff with her hands clasped behind her back. She was simply crazy. Why didn't you say earlier that you couldn't make a challenge before the competition? She was so happy for half a day just now that she thought she could start fighting as soon as the competition started. She really thought too much. Mu Xingqian stifled his laughter. Mo Lian turned to glance at him. Seeing his lowered head and trembling shoulders, she couldn't help but look up at the sky speechlessly. Restrain yourself. Mu Xingqian nodded. But how could he calm down inside? No, he couldn't laugh at his little sister. But his little sister's appearance just now was seriously too comical and adorable. This battle-hungry little fellow's spirited, I'm about to fight, expression suddenly turned into rage out of humiliation. Beneath her stoic face was an all-encompassing variety of strange little expressions. Why didn't you say you couldn't make a challenge earlier? You made Sir Jojo waste his saliva. Following Ao Lan's lead, everyone arrived at the venue area and sat down in their respective academy areas. The 6 circular arenas were simultaneously illuminated by the suspended illuminating pearls and rotated clockwise along the stands at a uniform speed. Under the illuminating pearls' refraction, each arena emitted a bright and sharp light. A burst of noise came from the front. Everyone sat on the four sides of the stands, and the 6 arenas rotated clockwise. This way, everyone could clearly see the situation on each arena. Of course, if spirit energy crisscrossed during the battle, it was naturally impossible to clearly see the situation on each arena. At that time, they could only selectively watch 1 or 2 of the arenas. Therefore, the spectators spent a lot of spirit coins to buy seats in the front row of the arena. In this way, their field of vision was broadened, and they could clearly feel the intensity of each battle. The hosts of the competition were a pair of fairy-like white-clothed man and woman. In an instant, many peach blossom petals fell from the sky, drifting in the air. The man and woman held hands as they landed on one of the brightly lit arenas. They chuckled and said to the crowd in the stands, "Greetings, patriarchs and sect masters of the aristocratic families. Greetings, young masters and young mistresses, teachers and students of the academy. Today, we are honored to be the host of the famous Heaven Yuan ranking competition in the 3 provinces." The bright illuminating pearl lit up the entire area of the royal school. Let us welcome the teachers and students of the royal school with a warm round of applause. From afar, Xiao Mu looked expressionlessly at the host and host who were talking nonstop. Her small face was tense. As we all know, the Tianyuan ranking was originally a competition for the royal school to select the best talents. The 2 hosts blabbered on, but Arbor didn't listen carefully. Chapter 41:16. In the end, she heard the host call out vehemently, "Now, may the Royal Academy's representative please stand up and say a few words for us." Immediately after, a beam of bright, rippling light struck her directly. It had to be said that no matter if it was the layout or the decorations of the Shengjiawei arena, they were all top-notch. When the lights hit the little stoic's body, the little stoic's aloof, gorgeous, and expressionless stoic face simultaneously appeared on the 6 large arenas. It was unknown who let out a pft. But the Royal Academy's teachers and students nearly went crazy with laughter. They all hastily lowered their heads and pretended not to see anything, but their shoulders suspiciously twitched and trembled. Mu Xingqian covered his face with one hand, feeling like his stomach was hurting from holding it in. What kind of freaking joke was this? Who could tell them? Was it Shengjiawei Arena's long-standing practice to have the representative stand up and say a few words? Or was it specially taking care of the little stoic? Where in the world did Shengjiawei find these 2 amusing hosts? Arbor noticed that everyone's gazes were on her. Emma Lien was a bit pained from holding back her laughter, and she quietly said to her, "It's nothing, Jojo. Don't mind it. Speak a few words. Yin Piaomiao made an encouraging gesture with an affectionate face. "Student Xiao, don't panic. Your whole family is panicking." Arbor knitted her brows and expressionlessly stood up. She surveyed the surroundings, and her gaze landed on several students from Jiawei Academy in the front row. She asked crisply, "Who dares to challenge me on stage?" How could those young and impetuous students from Jiawei Academy concede defeat? Once they saw the little girl's infuriating attitude and condescending expression, they immediately couldn't sit still. The girl from before stood up with a stomp and roared with glaring eyes, "Me!" The little stoic looked at her, and her eyes instantly sparkled. She hastily praised, "You have such good taste." The Royal Academy's students truly couldn't freaking hold back anymore, and they roared with laughter. The 2 hosts stood there awkwardly for a long time before they cleared their throats and said, "All right. This female student from Jiawei Academy challenges the Royal Academy's student representative. The challenge is a success. Now will both representatives please give us a speech?" Qi Xuanxuan's shoulders trembled as she buried her head and giggled. Heavens, are these 2 hosts here to make fun of me? After talking for so long, they still wanted Jojo to speak. What could Jojo say? Thus, the female student from Jiawei Academy said in a clear voice, "I'm Jiawei Academy's 3rd-year Battle Hall student, Jiang Lu Shui. It's my honor to meet all of you. In the future, I, Jiang Lu Shui, will fight every match with an unyielding spirit." All right. The 2 hosts cheered and applauded Jiang Lu Shui. Then, they turned to the student from Arbor with a smile. "Representative from the royal school, please speak." Arbor's face was stern, but a cold glint flashed in his eyes. I am Arbor from the Royal Academy. I will use my strength to prove to all of you that the battle arena is a battle, and everything you say is just nonsense. If you fight me, you will either lose or die. Everyone was speechless. The two hosts were inexplicably at a loss for words. What was going on? Ha 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 ha. A friend from the Royal Academy actually slapped his thigh and guffawed. Everyone's mouths twitched simultaneously, and they looked at the two hosts sympathetically. What could they say about you? Of all the things you could do, you just had to make the little stoic speak. Chapter 41:17. The Royal Academy's teachers and students had all experienced the thrill of having the little stoic give a speech on the first day of school. The two hosts stared blankly for a moment before snapping out of their daze, as if they had just woken up from a dream. Ahaha! The Royal Academy's new student representative is very energetic. Ha ha ha! Please sit. Sit. Hurry and sit down. Don't you see that the group of foolish children around you have already been stunned by your words? Before Arbor sat down, he waved at student Jiang Lushui and shouted from a distance, "When is the battle?" Everyone. Student Jiang Lushui from Jiawei Academy glanced at her in bewilderment and answered foolishly, "I'll accompany you anytime." A smile surfaced on the little stoic's expressionless face, and she raised a finger and shook it. "You have good taste." The surrounding Royal Academy students had long choked with laughter. My heavens, why did it feel like they didn't come to compete, but to watch a show instead? Arbor sat down and swept his eyes over the surrounding people, who were rocking back and forth with laughter. He knitted his brows and glanced at his husband. "Is it very funny?" Emma Lien hastily shook her head and said seriously, "How is it funny? My Chow, it's just a normal duel with someone." Her husband was right. Since when could a proper battle appointment make people laugh like this? Xiao Mu solemnly nodded her head, and her small eyes disdainfully swept over the surrounding students. Each and every one of them was laughing like idiots. Even Sir Jojo didn't know why they were laughing. Devil Star Academy, Jiawei Academy, Umbra Academy, Radiance Academy. Following the illumination of the Illumination Pearl's light, one academy formation after another flashed on the 6 arenas. Perhaps the two hosts were frightened by the Royal Academy's student representative's speech just now, but they didn't waste any more words afterward, and asked which academy's representative should stand up and say a few words for the next 7 days. Duo and I will broadcast the most exciting moments of each competition live. We will announce the rankings before the end of each day. This is what everyone is most concerned about. I believe our point calculation team will give everyone a satisfactory answer every day. I'm sorry, we're too late. Two voices rang out one after another. They saw a handsome man in white leading many disciples in the air. His voice sounded in the field. Sorry. Following behind him was a graceful woman in red clothes. Unwilling to be outdone, she led her group of disciples and flew to the front of the white-clothed man. She glanced at him fiercely and said in a clear voice, "The disciples of the Fire Academy are late. Please forgive us." Xiao Mu looked up, and her eyes involuntarily brightened. It's senior brother Situ and the others. He didn't expect that the disciples of Fire Smelting City and Icebound City would come for the finals of the Heavenly Origin competition. Emma Lien raised her head and naturally saw Situ Yi's lifeless face. She couldn't help but laugh. Looks like there's a good show to watch. Looking at the Fire Smelting City's City Lord and Icebound City's City Lord's faces, it was obvious that the upcoming competition wouldn't be peaceful. Umbra Academy, Fire Smelting City and Icebound City. Did they all come for the competition under the guise of an academy? Qi Xianxian asked curiously. Umbra City has been quite active recently. Chapter 41:18. Fatty nodded his head and said, "Yeah, I thought that since the 4 cities lived in seclusion, they wouldn't care about this little bit of resources. What do you know?" Mata played with the thin lancet in his hand and said with a smile, "You can't imagine the resources that the top 10 of the Heavenly Origin competition can obtain." "He's that powerful?" Little Fatty asked. "Since the World Academy is invited, the 4 cities will naturally participate. Furthermore, they didn't mess around. There are indeed academies in the 4 cities. With such a large city, it's not surprising that there are academies to accept talents from all walks of life. While speaking, a few white-clothed students of both genders walked over with smiles on their faces. Every one of them looked radiant with smiles on their faces. "Greetings, Your Highness the Crown Prince." The leading youth smiled as he walked in front of Emolien and respectfully bowed. Emolien's gaze faintly swept over the badge on his chest as he asked with a nod, "Someone from Glory City?" "Yes." The youth smiled and nodded. He pointed to the dozen or so youths behind him and said, "We're all disciples of Glory City's City Lord Bai. We're students of Glory Academy's Excellence class." Glory City's City Lord Bai Sheng is the father-in-law of the Divine Prefecture's Emperor and the Crown Prince's grandfather. This was something that almost everyone knew. Now that they saw the youths from Glory Academy greeting the Crown Prince, everyone felt that it wasn't strange at all. Emolien didn't have much enthusiasm. She just nodded her head and asked, "What's the matter?" The youths from Glory City were stunned. They probably didn't expect the Crown Prince's attitude to be so cold. Hearing her question, they awkwardly smiled and said, "Nothing much." Prince Emo nodded his head and turned his head to look at Arbor. He raised his hand and took out a cup of warm spiritual tea and handed it to his wife. Xiaomu naturally accepted it as a matter of course and silently drank a mouthful. The gazes of the people from Glory Academy fell on Arbor at the same time. "Who is this?" A soft and gentle voice rang out from the crowd of Radiance Academy. The end of the voice carried a hint of unknown meaning. All the disciples of Radiance Academy parted to the sides, revealing a woman with a slightly raised chin and an overbearing aura radiating from her. Arbor held a cup of tea and calmly glanced at the newcomer. He frowned slightly. Was it her imagination? He felt that these Glory Academy disciples were here to watch a good show. He seemed to be very unfriendly to her. Why was that? Emolien's eyes chilled a few degrees. She lifted her arm to embrace the little stoic's waist and icily said, "If your eyes aren't well, treat them as soon as possible. If your brain isn't good, treatment is probably useless." Qi Xianxian nodded her head in agreement. She turned around and whispered to little Fatty, "Did you see that? It's good to learn. If someone doesn't treat me well in the future, wife, don't worry. I will definitely help you destroy them." Ma Ta, Lu Yu, Jiang Shaoxin, and the others all looked at the 2 idiots expressionlessly. What was going on? Why did it feel like the entire world had changed after they came out of seclusion for 2 days? What was going on with this inexplicable pink rain of bubbles floating around them all day long? Could single people protest? Could they make these 2 idiots pay attention and stop being lovey-dovey in front of them all day long? Chapter 41:19. The gorgeous woman's expression changed slightly, and she looked coldly at Emolien. "Senior brother Emo, I didn't expect you to change so much after not seeing you for more than a decade." Emolien raised his brows and looked at the woman in front of him noncommittally. In his memory, he didn't have this person at all. She was someone who was thrown down to the lower realm by her father when she was 3 or 4 years old. Speaking of which, the time she could stay in Glory City was before she was 4 years old. How many memories could she have of that time? It was normal for her to not remember these people. However, their overbearing attitude made Emolien somewhat uncomfortable, especially since this overbearing attitude wasn't directed at him, but at his Jojo. It made him feel even more disgusted. Hong Shang carefully sized up the little stoic girl in front of him. He had to admit that this girl indeed had a rarely seen icy beauty that was unparalleled. But what was the use of being beautiful? Senior brother Emo was truly too shallow and short-sighted. As the crown prince of the Divine Province, the future heir apparent of the Divine Province, and the next generation's leader of Glory City, no matter which identity it was enough to shake the entire 3 provinces. How could such an outstanding talent so carelessly marry a wife with such a low cultivation? In the eyes of Hong Shang and the numerous youths from Glory Academy, the little stoic's cultivation was simply so low that it made one's hair stand on end. 3rd level of the spirit realm, any random guard from a large aristocratic family wouldn't have a cultivation as low as the third level of the spirit realm. So just how submissive was she? You're also a student of the Imperial Academy? Hong Shang's indifferent gaze landed on Arbor as he said in an icy tone. Do you dare accept my challenge? Arbor didn't have any reaction after hearing this. Everyone around her was instantly shaken. In the midst of an uproar, there were even Imperial Academy students who slapped their thighs and wildly cheered. Was there something wrong with these people from the Imperial Academy? Was there a need to be this excited just because she said one sentence? Hong Shang and the group of Glory Academy students behind him couldn't help but frown. The little stoic's eyes instantly lit up as she looked at her. She slowly stood up, still holding the teacup with both hands. You want to challenge me? Yes, I want to challenge you. Hong Shang stared coldly at the little girl before her. If you lose, you must leave Senior Brother Mo's side immediately and leave the Divine Prefecture. As soon as Hong Shang finished speaking, she was surprised to find that the group of Royal School students opposite her had all rolled their eyes at her. What was even stranger was that even the dean and a dozen or so instructors, sitting in the front row, couldn't help but look at her with disdain. Hong Shang was slightly angered. What? She was the eldest senior sister of Glory City, who had already broken through to the second level of the Divine Realm, and possessed the 8th level of the spiritual fire. How could she possibly lose to this little girl in front of her? The little stoic's chilly eyes narrowed dangerously. Those who knew her would immediately notice the slight change in her mood. This was a sign that he was about to get angry. Principal Yin stood up and chuckled as he said to Hong Shang. This student from Radiance Academy, you have good eyesight. Great. Then let's arrange the battle like this. You may return to your positions now. She hasn't agreed to my terms yet. Hong Shang snorted coldly. The little stoic's gaze abruptly chilled as she stared at her. Try saying that again. Hong Shang inexplicably felt a chill in her heart, and she glanced at the little stoic in bewilderment. Chapter 41:20. Strange, why was this sudden chill in her heart so intense and direct? Hong Shang took a deep breath, her eyes indifferently swept a glance at Arbor. How about it? You dare to accept my conditions? Bang. Emolien's sudden attack caused Hong Shang to be shocked. She quickly placed her hands in front of her forehead and released a fire spirit barrier. Boom. The moment the fire spirit barrier came into contact with Prince Mo's power, it shattered. While Hong Shang was shocked, the few youths behind her hurriedly threw out a few defensive talismans and arranged them in front of Hong Shang. Only then was she barely able to withstand the attack. Acting on your own initiative. My matters are none of your business. Emolien coldly glanced at her. Immediately apologize to my wife. Or else. Arbor tilted his head and coldly swept a glance at them. Hong Shang was unwilling, but since Senior Brother Mo had already spoken, she could only take a step forward and cupped her hands towards Arbor. Hong Shang was disrespectful. Please forgive her. Senior Sister Hong. The few youths from Glory City knitted their brows and called out in dissatisfaction. Emolien's eyes were incomparably cold as she stared at Hong Shang, causing her to uncomfortably lower her eyes. The little stoic's eyes revealed the meaning of your courting death. Just as she was about to open her mouth, she saw Hong Shang raise her hand and coldly say, Then I'll have to respectfully invite Miss to leave. Farewell. Hong Shang led her people and bowed towards Emolien. She simply didn't give the stoic a chance to speak, turned around, and left with the group of Glory Academy disciples. Before leaving, Arbor could feel the unfriendly gazes of these people from Glory City. She lowered her head and pondered for a moment. Her eyes flashed, and she somewhat understood why these people didn't like her. As the proud sons of Glory City, these genius students didn't wish for their future mistress to be an ant with a low cultivation that could be crushed with a finger. These young men and women from the big families and corporations had such bad tempers and were very overbearing. Jojo. Emolien looked at his wife worriedly. Are you angry? Arbor nodded solemnly. How could she not be angry? Someone was already knocking at her door, telling her to get away from Jojo's lotus if she knew what was good for her. It would be strange if she wasn't angry. The little stoic raised her head and glanced at Lotus. You don't feel bad about crippling her, right? Emo Lien shook her head decisively and quickly defended herself. I'm not familiar with them at all. If there was any friendship between them, it was probably a friendship from more than 10 years ago. Furthermore, the amount of time he stayed in Glory City with his mother wouldn't exceed 10 days. With his father's level of sticking to his wife, 10 days might not even be enough. How much friendship could he have with people like them? Even if they were friends, it was not as important as their own daughter-in-law. Xiaomu nodded her head, her eyes ice cold. What position did they have to show her an expression, as if she wasn't worthy of Jojo's lotus? Some irrelevant people inexplicably jumped in front of her and pointed at her. They were all people who needed to be taught a lesson. Even if she was a good-for-nothing, the matter between her and Lotus didn't need them to interfere. Whether she was worthy or not, how she and Jojo's Lotus lived their lives, that was between the two of them. Chapter 41-21. Other people. How could they be so shameless as to look down on her? While Arbor was deep in thought, illusions of the contestants' names appeared in the air above the 6 stages. If no one was on the stage, and no one registered for the free challenge competition in advance. At this time, the competition was carried out according to the drawing of lots. The drawing of lots was done by the teachers of each school backstage, and the matches were randomly matched. Everything depended on luck. For the free challenge competition, one had to apply 10 times in advance, and the other side had to agree in person. After the 12 contestants entered the stage, the 6 stages slowly rotated, and the atmosphere of the whole venue was ignited by the cheers of the audience. Arbor rested her chin on one hand, looking at the stage closest to her. On the stage, a girl from the Devil Star Academy was fighting with a student from the Shadow Academy. The two people's magnificent spiritual energy crisscrossed, flashing in front of everyone's eyes, and their movements were faster than ordinary people. Especially the Devil Star Academy disciple, who probably specialized in agile and graceful movements. In a few leaps and bounds, she made the male disciple from the Shadow Academy suffer a few losses. Suddenly, the male disciple from the Shadow Academy raised his hand and summoned a 12th level spiritual beast. When the 12th level spiritual beast appeared, its pressure intimidated the whole audience, and more or less affected the other 5 stages. The female disciple from the Devil Star Academy clenched her teeth, and also summoned a spiritual beast. It flew up to the Shadow Academy disciple, and after 100 moves, her body swayed and couldn't hold on. Arbor shook her head. She already knew that this girl would lose. After all, there was a difference in physical strength between men and women, and the level of the spiritual beast summoned by this girl was much lower than the opponent's. She was completely suppressed. The most important point was that although this girl's movements were light and graceful, she couldn't hold on for such a long time, and kept going back and forth on the stage. Eventually, she would be exhausted, and her spiritual energy couldn't be consumed for a long time. When her spiritual energy was exhausted, she would lose miserably looking at how that female disciple from Devil Star Academy was kicked off the stage without the slightest hesitation, and was unable to make a sound for a long time. Xiaomu knew that the strength of this kick had broken 3 of that girl's ribs. This person from the Shadow Academy was quite ruthless. Speaking of which, Xiaomu really did recognize this man standing on the stage right now. Previously, he had met a man in the Phoenix Wood Forest. His name seemed to be Zhao Yi. Previously, he had been following Mu Xiaoxue, the 4th Miss of the City of Shadows. Since this fellow was here, then Miss Mu was most likely here as well. When Xiao Mu's gaze shifted, she saw a dense mass of heads as far as the eye could see. If she really wanted to find something in this crowd, then she could only expend her divine conscience to activate her divine eye. Arbor didn't think it was necessary, so he turned his attention back to the field. This time after the 6 matches, Arbor heard the host's clear and melodious voice ring out like the sounds of nature. Ladies and gentlemen, the first round of the free-for-all competition begins now. Student Arbor from the Royal Academy, and student Jiang Lushui from the Jiawei Academy, please come to the stage. I'm going. The little guy excitedly shook Missouri Lian's hand. The latter didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Just as Jiang Lushui rose into the air and flew towards the ring, a slender figure suddenly flashed past. Chapter 41-22. Everyone only felt their vision blur. And when they looked at the stage again, they abruptly discovered that the little stoic was already standing on the stage. At this very moment, Jiang Lushui leaped to the edge of the stage and looked at Arbor in slight horror after landing. What was going on? Why was she so much faster than him? How did she appear on the stage so quickly? Jiang Lushui looked Xiaomu up and down in bewilderment. She used something like a teleportation talisman, right? The astonished crowd below couldn't help but shout. Could talismans be used in the competition? Of course they could. The degree of freedom in this Heavenly Yuan ranking tournament was very high. Even if you wanted to use poison, concealed weapons, or all sorts of random self-made items, it was all allowed. This point was clearly stated in the rules of the competition. Therefore, even if there were people shouting loudly, there was no need to say anything else. However, they probably didn't expect that someone would immediately use a teleportation talisman to posture the moment they appeared. Wouldn't this raise the opponent's vigilance? The competition hadn't even started yet, but was it really wise to raise the opponent's vigilance? How could these people know that the little stoic didn't activate a talisman at all? Before the start of the competition, the little fellow had already extracted the space-time power that could be used continuously for about 4 hours from the small silver ball and temporarily stored it in her body. Therefore, she didn't need to activate any talismans at all. Probably only some young talents with especially sharp eyesight would raise a trace of doubt in the depths of their hearts. Why didn't he sense the flow of talisman power in the air? Jiang Lushui instantly summoned his 3-foot-long sword from his conscious on high alert and held it tightly in his hand. A faint trace of doubt surfaced in his eyes. Why did this level 3 spiritual master in front of him give him so much pressure? Wasn't this strange? The other party was only a little level 3 spiritual master, and she was already a level 10 spiritual master. Logically speaking, she absolutely shouldn't be pressured by this stoic's aura. Taking a deep breath, Jiang Lushui calmed himself down and cupped his fists. Jiawei Academy, Jiang Lushui. Thanks for. Before he could finish speaking, Jiang Lushui felt his heart thump heavily. She saw that her opponent, who was 30 feet away from her, had suddenly appeared in front of her in a single step. He spread out his 5 fingers and fiercely pressed down on her face. Jiang Lushui only felt a huge and majestic force continuously passing through his opponent's arm. She lost her balance and fell on her back. Jiang Liushui's eyes flashed with a trace of panic and hesitation. He was dumbfounded. The sounds of gasps and screams around her were all blocked out of her mind. It was as if all the air around him had been sucked out in an instant. He could only hear the rumbling in his head. Other than that, there was no other sound. The back of Jiang Liushui's head was about to hit the ground. Xiaomu's eyes were sharp and her hands were nimble, and she grabbed her collar with a backhand, yanking her in front of her. Jiang Lushui stared blankly at the person in front of him. He opened his mouth, but before he could make a sound, his body had already been thrown out of the arena. Jiang Liushui's, but landed on the ground outside the arena. The fall didn't hurt, but his entire body was still in a daze. He didn't know what had happened until the tide-like roars came from all directions. Adjust the time tomorrow. Chapter 41-23. Only then did Jiang Lushui come back to his senses. She had lost. She had completely lost, hadn't she? The girl's eyes suddenly widened to the size of copper bells, and she stared fixedly at Arbor with an incredulous expression. Heavens, she was a level 10 Great Spirit Master. But she couldn't even summon her spirit beast in one exchange. She was already defeated by a little spirit master, who looked like she was only a level 3 spirit master. She was thrown out of the arena in one blow. Jiang Lushui couldn't help but shudder. It wasn't her misconception. When that stoic-faced person's hand pressed on her face with an ice-cold gaze, she could feel the aura of death approaching. This stoic-faced person's aura was so powerful that she suddenly felt like she was no match for him. But why was it like this? Jiang Lushui took a deep breath and was helped up by a few schoolmates from the same academy. His eyes still didn't blink as he stared fixedly at Arbor. At this moment, the female host, Duo, finally recovered from her shock and kicked the male host beside her, who was also in a daze. The female host, Duo, said with a smile, "Congratulations to this student from the Royal Academy for winning the first free challenge match. You will receive 100 points. Congratulations to this student from the Royal Academy." The entire arena was in an uproar. Many puzzled cries drowned out the cheers of Qi Xianxian and the others. Arbor raised her brows, and her gaze swept across the crowd below the arena. Her gaze faintly landed on the astonished Hong Shang. This girl was currently looking at her with a suspicious gaze, as if she was very doubtful about how she could sweep Jiang Lushui off the stage with one blow. A young man sitting beside Hong Shang frowned slightly and said to her in a low voice, "Senior Sister Hong, can you tell what happened just now?" Hong Shang thought for a moment with a cold expression and shook her head. Her movements were very fast just now. Even she almost didn't see clearly when she moved, and how she threw Jiang Lushui off the stage. It was truly inconceivable. "Senior Sister Hong, you have to be careful. Perhaps this Miss Qiao isn't as weak as we think?" Hong Shang couldn't help but sneer. "Junior brother Jia, you're being too cautious. It's just because I have some talismans in my possession. I've heard that the future mistress of Glory City is a symbol master." Cha Pinchao slowly reminded him. A faint cold light flashed in the depths of Hong Shang's eyes as he sneered. "Oh, let me experience the power of a talisman master. I've heard that a powerful symbol master can turn a city wall into ashes with a flick of his finger after reaching a certain level." Hee. Hong Shang suddenly chuckled. "I wonder what level her symbol force has reached." Cha Pinchao smiled and lowered his head to hide the slight ridicule in his eyes. Senior apprentice Sister Hong had indeed been cultivating in the sect for too long and was cut off from the outside world. In fact, there were many people who shared the same thoughts as Senior Hong. What a joke! Shouldn't these people first understand their opponents before making an appointment for a battle? Even with Jiang Liushui's example, she still couldn't raise her vigilance. Sure enough, she's been living like a prince in Glory City for the past few years. Her days have been too good. Cha Pinchao hid the ridicule on his lips and faintly lowered his eyes. Chapter 41-24. Hong Shang faintly swept a glance at Cha Pinchao. "What, do you have other opinions?" "I don't have any opinions," Cha Pinchao said with a smile in his voice. Hong Shang couldn't help but crease her brows. This junior brother Cha's strength was below hers, but his brain was indeed much smarter than hers. Junior brother Cha also expressed his disapproval when she brought people to cause trouble for that stoic face. Could it be that he really felt that stoic face had something outstanding about it? Hong Shang lifted her eyes again and looked towards the little stoic's direction. Next match, Fire Refining City's Wei Nanfeng versus Underworld Province's Tianhua Academy, Biaoliang. Arbor had just walked down and sat down when he heard the male host, Nyo, announce the names of the two competitors. The little fellow promptly tugged on Prince Mo's sleeve. "Your family's Wei Nanfeng is going up." The crown prince couldn't help but be speechless. He lightly stroked her small head. "What family's Wei Nanfeng? You're my family's. As for Wei Nanfeng? Heh." Looking at this contemptuous expression, if Wei Nanfeng was here and heard his own brother talking about him like this, he would definitely cry. As he spoke, Wei Nanfeng and that Tianhua Academy's Biaoliang simultaneously flew onto the stage and cupped their fists in salute. At the same time, they summoned their weapons from their conscious. "The author is here." Cough, 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 cough. Outside the gauze screen, below the steps of the main hall, eunuchs and royal maids were all kneeling there in fear and trepidation. They didn't even dare to breathe loudly. Ever since Her Majesty the Empress arrived, the atmosphere here was so cold and strange that it made people feel extremely fearful. Everyone only dared to lie down and play dead, motionlessly pretending that their 5 senses and 6 senses were completely blocked. How could they still dare to listen to the quarrel coming from behind the gauze screen? Impossible. Her Majesty can't have passed away like this. Tell me, is it him? Is it Prince Chen's doing? Is it? Empress Lu's face was waxy yellow, and her eyes were completely sunken due to lack of sleep. Now, she was so thin that her cheekbones protruded high, and her eyes were like a demon from hell. She gloomily stared unwaveringly at the row of imperial physicians kneeling in front of her, as she let out a high-pitched and impassioned shriek. The row of imperial physicians had already fainted from fright. The empress accused the crown prince of murdering the great emperor? Who the fuck would dare to respond to such words? Cough, cough, cough. The chief physician of the imperial hospital braced himself and raised his head. He shook his head and said, "Your Majesty, the empress worries too much. His Majesty's injuries were too severe in his early years, and all these years, he has only been holding on with medicine. His Majesty is very clear about his own body, including the maids who serve him." Shut up. Empress Lu pointed at the chief physician of the Imperial Institute of Medicine with her sharp fingernails and shouted, "Wang Hua, how dare you give false testimony for Prince Chun? It was him, he must have poisoned His Majesty. Investigate. Investigate for this consort. I want to get to the bottom of this. The Empress has been worrying too much these days, and her mind is not clear. Send her back to Rinchuan Palace first." Duan Yu's chilly voice abruptly rang out, so icy that it made people's hearts involuntarily shudder. On the side, head eunuch Lai Fu, who had been keeping his head down the entire time, quickly responded with a yes when he heard Duan Yu's command. "What are you doing? What are you doing? You bunch of wretched slaves. How dare you grab this consort? Let go of this consort. Let go." Empress Lu shrieked. Duan Yu's eyes coldly swept over her. Chapter 41-25. She didn't say anything, but the royal guards walked up to grab Empress Lu and shoved her out the door. "Impudent! Impudent!" Empress Lu shrieked as she struggled to break free from their restraints. "Wrongly. You're a wolf with wild ambitions. You killed His Majesty. You." Duan Yu pressed his aching head and turned to look at Wu Yong. "Prime Minister." "Yes." Left Prime Minister Wu Yong nodded. He stood up, lifted the muslin curtain, and walked outside the screen. He cupped his hands at the Empress and said, "My condolences, Your Majesty. His Majesty did pass away because of the aggravation of his injuries. His Majesty has sought medical treatment for his injuries for so many years. Who in court doesn't know about it? Just a while ago, His Majesty passed away very quietly after calmly delegating some matters to us subjects. His Majesty passed away very peacefully and quietly. Your Majesty, please don't continue making a fuss here. You bunch of sycophantic officials and traitors were all bribed by Prince Chun. You all want to deal with my Lier. Sycophantic officials, sycophantic officials." No matter how extraordinary Prime Minister Wu Yong's bearing was, his nose was about to become crooked from anger when the Empress pointed at him and called him sycophantic officials and traitors. "Your Majesty, please be careful with your words," Wu Yong said gravely. A person directly walked out of the inner room and coldly looked at the unreasonable Empress. He said solemnly, "In the Empress's eyes, could it be that this prince of the first rank, Prince of Qing, Prince of Lu, the left and right prime ministers, and the 6 ministers are all sycophantic officials?" Empress Lu couldn't help but be taken aback when she saw the handsome middle-aged man with a cold and stern expression. "Roy, Prince Roy." Empress Lu was flabbergasted. She then looked at the various princes and ministers who filed out of the inner room and felt a bit unwell. "Prince of the first rank, Prince of Qing, Prince of Lu. Why are you all?" The Crown Prince of King Qing glanced at the Empress and said in a deep voice, "His Majesty has already drafted the Edict of Succession. He summoned all of us here and handed the edict to His Highness the Crown Prince in front of all of us. Your Majesty, you truly were too rude just now. His Majesty crowned Prince Chun as the Crown Prince 3 days ago. But just now the Empress kept talking about Prince Chun. From her mouth to her heart, she was completely convinced that the person in front of her was the Crown Prince. Hey. The old Prince of Qing had always been a peacemaker. At this moment, seeing that her son didn't give the Empress any face and directly went against the Empress, she hurriedly tugged at his clothes and mediated. "Your Majesty, please don't take offense. My son is just straightforward and speaks his mind." Her Majesty must have been overly grieved by His Majesty's sudden death. That's why she spoke without thinking. Everyone, please don't take offense. Did His Majesty call all of you here? The Empress trembled all over and her face turned pale. The great Emperor knew that his life was coming to an end. Before he passed away, he didn't even plan to look at her. Just how much did he despise her? Empress Lu immediately collapsed to the ground, unable to muster up any strength. She knew. She had always known that there was no place for her in His Majesty's heart. He liked someone else. Although His Majesty had never said it to them, as a woman's intuition, she knew it for sure. Your Majesty, please restrain your grief. Prime Minister Wu sighed. Chapter 41-26. To tell the truth, Prime Minister Wu suddenly couldn't find any words of reproach when he saw the Empress like this. He could actually understand the Empress's worries about personal gains and losses now. His Majesty didn't even want to see her one last time before his death. Presumably, he truly didn't have any feelings for her after all these years. It was said that people would develop feelings for each other after interacting for a long time. But His Majesty was so indifferent that it made people's hearts heavy. Duan Yu coldly gazed at Empress Lu, who was sitting paralyzed on the ground, with a faint sneer on his lips. Who was she pretending for? Those who didn't know would think that she had deep feelings for the Emperor. Everything was merely for the sake of benefits. Seeing her silently sobbing with tears streaming down her face, they would think that she was very broken-hearted. If the Crown Prince hadn't been dethroned and her son, Rongli, ascended to the throne now, perhaps she would already be bursting with joy. Unfortunately, the Lu family was finished. Rongli was also finished. You were also about to be finished. Duan Yu's eyes revealed a cold and sharp glint, and he faintly lowered his gaze. Although Prince Rue and Prince Li of the first rank were about 10 years younger than the Emperor, they were the Emperor's biological uncles. Moreover, the Emperor treated these two little royal uncles extremely well all these years. The two royal uncles were also very supportive to the Emperor, calling them together with the Prince of Qing and the Prince of Lu to make arrangements after their deaths, was actually to pave the way for Duan Yu's ascension to the throne. As the Empress's senior, Prince Rue naturally couldn't harshly criticize her after seeing her like this. He merely sighed and said, Empress, I believe you are also aware. Due to an old injury from many years ago, His Majesty's body is getting thinner by the day. It's precisely because His Majesty felt that his days were numbered that he hurriedly brought His Highness the Fourth Prince back to Tsang Province. Empress Lu gritted her teeth in hatred. How could she not know these things? Hence, when noble consort Duan returned to the palace, she became a thorn in her side. Because she knew from the start that the Emperor intended to nurture this fourth prince. When His Highness the Fourth Prince returned to the palace, she quickly discovered to her horror that this fourth prince was above her son, Crown Prince Rongli, in every aspect, whether it was talent, cultivation, or ability to manage affairs. Of course, she hated the mother and son to death. Not only did she want noble consort Duan dead, but she also wanted Duan Yu, this little bastard, dead. Damn bastard, damn Rong Yuan. The Empress truly didn't expect that the Emperor would actually plant his seed on the distant Sikong planet. And this seed, without her knowledge, had actually grown to this stage in one fell swoop. How hateful! Empress Lu took a deep breath and angrily grasped the handkerchief in her hand. His Majesty's cultivation has completely dissipated over the years, and he's no different from an ordinary person without any cultivation. Prince Rue shook his head and sighed. However, His Majesty left very calmly this time. This prince saw that his face was filled with relief, and there was no sign of pain. Presumably, his heart has found a place to return to. Empress Lu bit her lips bitterly. Have a place to belong to? His heart had a place to return to. Oh, what a sarcastic word. Shouldn't her husband's heart belong to her? At this time, Empress Lu had completely forgotten that she didn't give all her true feelings and sincerity to Rong Yuan. Usually, she would think more about how to let her son inherit the throne, and how to let her Lu family take a step forward in the Tsangzhou continent. Chapter 41-27. Next, We still have to prepare His Majesty's funeral. Court matters are also piled up like a mountain. The Crown Prince's ascension is imminent, so there are many matters to attend to. The Empress should return to Benevolence Palace as soon as possible to properly recuperate. Prince Li of the first rank said aloofly. Prince Rui also nodded. Prince Li of the first rank is extremely correct. If the Empress has no other matters, please return to the palace first. The implication was, don't stay here and cause trouble for others. They were already busy enough. Since her two uncles had already spoken, there was nothing the Empress could do other than secretly resent them. However, she was truly unresigned, and her venomous eyes were still glaring at Duan Yu before she left. Ever since their Lu family was annihilated, everything developed in a terrifying direction. Her leader was led astray by a bunch of coquettish bitches. This matter was truly too fishy. She was very clear about her own son. His character was pure and virtuous, and he was also very chaste. In addition, Lear's health wasn't too good, and he also greatly cherished his life, so he normally wouldn't mess around with women. Moreover, it was a man. When the Empress recalled the scene she saw that day when she vomited blood, her entire face couldn't help but contort. Prince Rui frowned as he watched the pale-faced Empress being supported out. He grumbled in displeasure. With such a temperament, it's no wonder you raised a son like that. Oh no. A young eunuch scrambled inside with a ghastly pale face, and nearly bumped into Prince Rui's leg. Your Highness the Crown Prince, all the princes, something has happened. What happened? Prince Qing's eyelid twitched, and he quickly strode over to that young eunuch with his chubby legs, lifting him up at once. Hurry and speak, what happened? That eunuch's lips quivered in fright as he hastily said, the dethroned Crown Prince drowned in the pond in the Imperial Garden. What? Prince Rui growled, flabbergasted. Prince Li of the first rank glared at that eunuch and demanded, what are you still standing there for? Lead the way. Yes. The young eunuch was so frightened that his entire body was trembling. His entire body quivered when he heard Prince Li of the first rank's words. After Prince Qing threw him to the ground, he stumbled to his feet and crawled towards the door. A faint sneer appeared on Duan Yu's lips. When everyone followed the eunuch to the side of the pond in the Imperial Garden, they saw Empress Lu sitting on the ground with her hair disheveled. She was hugging a young man dressed in brocade, whose face was deathly pale. She was bawling without a care for her image. The many guards, maids, and eunuchs around her were all helpless. They couldn't reach out and take the person from the Empress' arms. Prince Rui and the others hurried forward and glanced at Rong Li's stiff and pale face. Seeing that his face was stiff, they knew that there was no hope for him. He probably slipped into the pool last night. You bunch of dog slaves. How was he on duty? Why did you only find out now that such a big thing had happened to the dethroned Crown Prince? Head eunuch Lai Fu's face was dark as he pointed at the trembling eunuchs and palace maids kneeling in a row and scolded them angrily. The eunuch close to the dethroned Crown Prince, Rong Li, crawled forward a few steps and cried out with a sobbing tone. Your Highness the Crown Prince, the princes, please allow me to report. The dethroned Crown Prince drank himself to death last night and insisted on going out for a walk. The servants wanted to follow him, but they were all chased back after being reprimanded by the dethroned Crown Prince. Absurd! Empress Lu shrieked. Chapter 41-28. It's clearly you bunch of wicked servants who neglected my son. Now you're saying it's his fault. Empress Lu pointed at the young eunuch who was refuting and shrieked. Guards! Drag this dog slave away and flog him to death. Flog him to death. The eunuch was so frightened that he couldn't stop trembling. He scrambled to Prince Rui's feet and kowtowed loudly. Your Highness, everything this servant said is true. All the royal maids and eunuchs in Huayang Hall can testify. The dethroned Crown Prince's temperament has changed greatly recently, so he won't tolerate us servants getting close to him. Every time this servant wants to follow him, we're all chased away by the dethroned Crown Prince. If we insist on following and infuriate the dethroned Crown Prince, we will even be beaten to death. Woo. Nonsense. The Empress flew into a rage and hugged Rong Li's icy body. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she shrieked. What dethroned crown prince? What dethroned crown prince? You actually dared to treat my son like this? Humiliate him like this? No wonder he doesn't want you to follow and serve him. Ah, this empress wants to kill you crafty dog slaves, kill you all. Prince Li of the first rank couldn't help but roll his eyes. If this wasn't the dethroned crown prince, then what was? Ever since His Majesty dethroned this person of his crown prince title, he didn't confer a king, or give any title. So what was he called if not the dethroned crown prince? The eunuchs and royal maids were all trembling in fright, and rolled all over the ground, not daring to get up. Duan Yu, on the other hand, angrily rebuked impatiently. Enough, if you want to make a fuss, then go back and make a fuss. What kind of scandal is this in the garden? It's you. It's you who killed my son. It's you. Empress Lu was like a rabid dog right now, biting whoever she caught. Everyone else was simply speechless at her. Your Majesty the Empress, His Majesty was dying yesterday, so we stayed in His Majesty's bedchamber with His Highness the Crown Prince, and didn't take a step out. During this time, His Highness the Crown Prince sat in front of His Majesty's bed and didn't go out at all. If he wanted to harm my Li-er, did he need to do it himself? Did he need to do it? Empress Lu harshly as she hugged her darling son. She glared at Duan Yu like a madwoman. Speak, speak. Was it you? Was it you who harmed my Li-er? Ah. Duan Yu coldly stared at her as a mocking smile tugged at the corner of his lips. Heh, you think too highly of your son. This consort wants to deal with him? A single finger would have sufficed. Is there a need for such a scheme? In reality, your son has already been killed by this consort. He has vanished into thin air. You won't even be able to get a single strand of hair. Luan Xiang, this is just the beginning. You can't take it anymore? Duan Yu's eyes were solemn and cold. Don't worry. I will definitely make you beg for death. Every day, he was filled with regret and pain. How stupid of a crime he had committed. Empress Lu gazed at Duan Yu's peach blossom eyes that were overflowing with light and color. They were clearly so beautiful, yet they inexplicably made people feel a chill in their hearts. Soul returning pill, soul returning pill, soul returning pill. Empress Lu suddenly seemed to think of something. She hugged her son, and hurriedly moved a few times. He looked at Prince Rui, and Prince Li of the first rank with a face full of hope. Imperial uncles, save me. As long as I go to the divine province and beg for a soul returning pill, I will definitely be able to save my son. My son is a cultivator. Although his cultivation wasn't high, his cultivation wasn't completely crippled, and his conscience wasn't damaged. As long as there was a soul-returning pill, he would definitely be able to save his son. I heard that the crown princess of the divine province knows how to refine a soul-returning pill. Adjustment failed. Continue tomorrow. Chapter 41-29. Prince Rui, Prince Li, royal uncles, please save your grandnephew. Li-er can't die. I can't live without my son. Empress Lu cried until her face was pale and miserable. Prince Rui and Prince Li of the first rank glanced at her and said with a sigh, the divine land is very far away from here. I heard that the Empress of the divine land woke up after taking the soul-returning pill made by the crown princess. But we didn't see it with our own eyes after all. It's just hearsay, so we don't know how much truth there is. Prince Rui said very calmly, we can't take it completely seriously. Prince Chen has it. Prince Chen has it. Prince Rui's eyes darkened. Your Majesty the Empress, please be careful with your words. Prince Chen isn't Prince Chen anymore. This is the current crown prince, the heir that His Majesty personally acknowledged. Could it be that your Majesty wants to oppose the deceased His Majesty? You don't want to acknowledge His Highness the Crown Prince's identity? This Imperial one doesn't have such intentions, the Empress said coldly. However, her attitude with Duan Yu was very stiff earlier, so she couldn't bring herself to directly ask for the soul-returning pill from Duan Yu. She could only pin her hopes on Prince Rui and Prince Li. However, the two princes were speechless at Empress Lu's emotional intelligence. You said you were at odds with His Highness the Crown Prince in every way, and both sides were as incompatible as fire and water. You're already like this. Yet you still have the nerve to ask him for such a precious pill? The soul-returning pill? Who didn't know how important that sacred medicine was to cultivators? If a dead person could be revived, not only would their previous cultivation be unaffected, but they might even improve a lot by chance. Do you think that with your relationship with His Highness the Crown Prince, he would give you such an important pill? Prince Rue frowned and glanced at the Empress, pretending not to see the high hopes in her eyes. What a joke! You can't ask His Highness the Crown Prince yourself, so you want him to sell his old face. Is this appropriate? Prince Li also didn't speak. When the Empress saw this, she collapsed on the ground dejectedly. She hugged the dethroned Crown Prince Rong Li's icy body and sobbed. Royal uncles, princes, is there no one who can help us, a widow and an orphan? My Lear is dead. The Empress sobbed, and her voice became extremely choked. Now that there is a way to save my Lear, why not try it? Could it really be as I expected? Leah was killed by you? Empress Lu sternly pointed in Duan Yu's direction, her sunken eyes revealing a hostile glint. Duan Yu glanced at her expressionlessly, and couldn't resist clicking his tongue. With such a lack of talent in acting, what was the point of acting? The provocation didn't seem to be a provocation, and the bitter love play didn't seem to be a bitter love play. Watching it, it felt particularly out of place. I don't have what the Empress is talking about. No. Of course there was. In the ring that Jojo had given him, there was an excellent black patterned soul-restoring pill. This saint medicine was naturally stored away by him. Would he use it on Rong Li? Not to mention that Rong Li had already turned into ashes. Even if he really had a corpse, how could he deserve it? What's more, the drowned corpse in front of him was only a death row prisoner. It was not Rong Li at all. It was just a disguise. She couldn't even recognize her own son. A mocking smile surfaced on Duan Yu's lips. She hugged and howled for so long, yet she couldn't even tell who the person in her arms was. How could it not be ironic? Chapter 4130. She even kept saying that she wanted to ask for a soul-returning pill for her son. Truly sorry, but unfortunately, your son has already fused with the dust. Even if he ate 8 or 10 soul-returning pills, he wouldn't be able to return his soul or come back to life. Duan Yu aloofly swept Empress Lu a glance and said coldly, "What are you still standing there for? The Empress is unwell, so help her back to Rinchuan Palace." "No, I won't go. No." Empress Lu shouted harshly and suddenly threw herself at Duan Yu's feet. "Rong Li, are you going to leave him to die like this? This is your eldest brother. Is your eldest brother's life merely an ant in your eyes?" Empress Lu angrily said in a threatening manner, "You must have a soul-returning pill on you. This pill doesn't have much use for the current you, right? Why are you unwilling to use this soul-returning pill to save your eldest brother?" Duan Yu gave her a mocking smile. He didn't speak, but everyone around him felt the heavy atmosphere pressing down on their hearts, making it hard for them to breathe. "Rong Li," Empress Lu bellowed angrily, "take it as this royal one begging you." "Begging?" Duan Yu swept her a glance, a cold glint in his eyes. "What kind of attitude are you using to beg me?" He coldly swept that woman a glance. "Now you want to beg him? Then what were you doing before? Could it be that only your son's life was important, but his mother's life wasn't?" Duan Yu took a deep breath and firmly suppressed the raging hatred in his heart. Right, this was revenge. Moreover, this revenge was only the beginning. If she couldn't stand it now, then how could she continue living in the future? His cold and heavy eyes gazed deeply at Empress Lu. His cold voice abruptly rang in Empress Lu's ears. "I don't have a soul-returning pill. Even if I did, I wouldn't give it to you." Empress Lu's entire body fell limply to the ground. All of a sudden, it was as if the air in her chest was completely blocked, unable to come out or go down. She abruptly opened her mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. "Your Majesty the Empress!" All the royal maids and eunuchs shrieked. The expressions of Prince Li, Prince Rue, and the other princes also changed slightly. "Empress, why are you doing this?" Prince Qing's round face showed a hint of hesitation. Looking at the Empress's current state, he could not bear to see her like this. In the past, the Empress had the support of the Lu family. How could she have fallen to such a helpless state? "King Qing," The Empress cried so much that her makeup was all ruined. She cried to the heavens and wiped away her tears. She no longer had the majesty of an empress. Prince of Qing, please help me persuade the Crown Prince. I'm sure you know the relationship between the Crown Prince and the Crown Princess of Shenzhou. It's as easy as lifting a finger for the Crown Prince. The Prince of Qing looked at the sullen Duanyu before looking at the Empress. Empress, you're truly making things too difficult for this old official. This matter is also very difficult for your highness. Now that His Highness the Crown Prince is about to ascend the throne, there are many things that need to be dealt with. The Prince of Qing said with a troubled expression. Moreover, speaking of which, that resurrection pill is only a legendary pill. Whether it can really bring someone back from the dead is another matter, isn't it? It's not. Empress Lu sharply interrupted the Prince of Qing. Her eyes were bloodshot as she glared at the other party and said, "It's true. The resurrection pill's effects are real." Chapter 4131. Otherwise, how could the Empress of the Divine Province really come back from the dead? Prince Qing became increasingly troubled. Then let's just say it's true. But the production of this soul-returning pill must be very difficult. This isn't cabbage that can be found on the streets. If you say you want it, they can give it to you immediately. Moreover, with your friendship with the Crown Prince, it's already benevolent of the Crown Prince to not trample on you a few more times. Why do you still have the face to ask for it? Prince, you must help me, you must help me. Don't be anxious, Empress. The old Prince Qing, who was used to smoothing things over, sighed helplessly. How about this? Let's write a letter to the Emperor of the Divine Province and see if we can purchase a soul-returning pill from their Crown Princess. What do you think? Empress Lu looked sharply in Duanyu's direction. He must have a faster way of contacting people. This he definitely has a way. But isn't this old official giving you a way out? Why do you still insist on harping on the Crown Prince? Don't you see that person's icy expression, heartless and indifferent, completely disregarding you? With his personality, how could he help you send a message to the Crown Princess of the Divine Province to ask for some soul-returning pill for Rongli, this dethroned Crown Prince? Isn't this a joke? Prince Qing still wanted to say something, but Prince Qing's heir, Rong Qing, stepped forward and pulled his father back. All right, father. It's faster to have the Ministry of Rites supervise the matter of requesting the soul-returning pill from the Crown Princess of the Divine Province. Ministry of Rites. The Empress's voice rose an octave. Wouldn't it take a month for the Ministry of Rites to send an official letter to the Divine Province and back? By then, wouldn't it be too late? You just won't help me, is that it? Empress Lu shrieked. Prince Qing's heir, Rong Qing, said aloofly. The Empress is mistaken. Since the Empress knows about the soul-returning pill, then you must also be aware of it. The Empress of the Divine Province passed away more than a decade ago, but she could still wake up without any side effects after taking the soul-returning pill. Evidently, this soul-returning pill doesn't have any effect on the human body, Rong Qing said aloofly. In that case, why is Your Majesty the Empress in such a hurry? You. The Empress couldn't refute a single word. On the other hand, Prince Li of the first rank and Prince Rui of the first rank nodded at the same time. With a stern expression they reprimanded. Empress, what the prince said is extremely reasonable. How about this, you go back to Incheon Palace and wait for the news. Don't come out for a few days. Empress Lu's entire face was twisted. She took a deep breath and said in a shrill voice. As the Empress of the Middle Palace, how can this Empress not co-host such a major event as the Crown Prince's ascension to the throne? Duanyu's icy gaze swept over her, but he did not say anything. He merely waved his hand and said, "Escort the Empress back to the palace first." Yes, a series of palace maids and mamas swarmed up, surrounding the Empress, whose expression suddenly changed, and went to the Renchuan Palace. You, let go. Empress Lu was at her wit's end. These eunuchs and palace maids seemed to have all been bribed by that bastard Crown Prince. None of them were of one mind. What about Mi Hung? Where's Mi Hung? Empress Lu said angrily. Go away. Have Mi Hung serve this Empress. Reporting to Your Majesty the Empress, Sister Mi Hung went to the Sijin room today and has yet to return. Chapter 4132. Go away. Who are you people? Why have I never seen you before? Empress Lu yelled as she was shoved away. Prince Li of the first rank and Prince Rui looked back and shook their heads speechlessly. This empress's temperament truly left them speechless. Things had already developed to this extent. Instead of living her days properly, she kept jumping up and down to find trouble with the crown prince. Could it be that she couldn't recognize the current situation? Your Highness. Prince Qing hastily curtsied and said with a smile, "Let's go to the study to discuss the coronation." Duan Yu nodded and glanced at the corpse lying next to the ice-cold pool. Send the corpse to the Ministry of Rites. If there are any signs of mutation, Duan Yu muttered to himself for a few seconds before coldly ordering, "Burn it." Yes. The royal guards bowed and left to carry out the order. The prince's hearts trembled slightly, and they immediately shuddered with fear. This crown prince seemed to be even more decisive than before nighttime. Duan Yu left the study and walked towards the side chamber. Naturally, Ying followed closely behind him. After walking silently for a while, Shadow suddenly asked, "Your Highness must be tired from today. Go back and rest first." Duan Yu stopped and took out the Jade Messenger talisman from his inner world. He looked down at it. There was a small line of words. "Are you well? We were all very worried about you." A faint smile surfaced on his lips, and he took out a talisman pen to write on it. "I'm very well. However, Royal Father suddenly passed away, so I'm afraid this trip will be delayed. I can't come to the academy for the time being." Just as he was about to put away that Jade Messenger talisman, he suddenly felt a flicker of light sweep past it. The little stoic's reply actually came so quickly. "It's good that you're fine. Then you should take care of your matters. We'll come find you later." The little fellow must have been paying attention to the Jade Messenger talisman the entire day for her to reply so quickly. Otherwise, with the little lady's personality, who knew how many days it would take for her to notice the message after she tossed the Jade Messenger talisman into her inner world? Warmth flowed through Duan Yu's heart. He tightly gripped that Jade Messenger talisman in his hand and stood there silently for a long time, until Shadow whispered into his ear, "Your Highness? Is there anything wrong?" Only then did Duan Yu return to his senses. He shook his head with a smile and said, "Let's go to Benevolence Palace." Ying frowned and said disapprovingly, "Your Highness, you are already very tired today." "Yeah, I'm fine." Duan Yu smiled faintly, his tone apathetic. "I don't want to waste any more time with that person. How could such a precious thing like time be wasted on such a person?" Duan Yu's eyes gazed deeply at the dark and gloomy sky in the distance, and his lips curled into a mocking smile. "Let's go to Renchuan Palace." In the end, Ying didn't say anything. He sighed faintly and followed His Highness to the direction of Renchuan Palace. If this matter could be settled today, the Crown Prince would be able to calm down and deal with the matters related to his ascension. That's right. The Crown Prince shouldn't be disturbed by such trivial matters at this time. Her footsteps sped up as she followed Duan Yu all the way to Benevolence Palace. Renchuan Palace was Empress Lu's bedroom. It was originally a dignified, imposing, solemn and elegant palace. But ever since the Empress was grounded and had nothing to do all day, she would throw around and fight in the palace. Chapter 4133. It could be said that there wasn't a single good item in the entire palace. Stepping inside, it was truly a scene of ruins and disorder. Meanwhile, Empress Lu was currently sitting on the only bed that could be considered clean, as she panted slightly. After her repeated smashing and smashing, Benevolence Palace's furnishings had fallen from its previous grandeur and exquisiteness to the present state, where only some ordinary items were placed. Even if Her Majesty the Empress wanted to smash, she could do as she pleased. In any case, they weren't worth much. Today, Her Majesty the Empress had smashed another round. When Duan Yu led Ying into the palace, Senior Royal Maid Mi Hung was currently having some junior eunuchs and junior royal maids tidy up the dilapidated items on the ground. Mi Hung was currently standing beside the Empress with a bent back, as she quietly consoled her. The Empress's anger that had originally subsided rapidly flared up again when she looked up and saw Duanyu. She gloomily glared at Duanyu with a pair of cold and heavy eyes as she angrily demanded, "You still dare to come? Why wouldn't we dare to come?" Duanyu gave her a mocking smile and waved his hand. "All of you withdraw. Who dares?" Empress Lu shrieked. Her bloodshot eyes instantly widened to the size of copper bells as she glared fixedly at Duanyu in front of her. "All of you withdraw," Duanyu repeated again. The junior royal maids and eunuchs hurriedly prostrated themselves on the ground and said, "Yes." Empress Lu angrily and bitterly scolded their retreating figures. "A bunch of dog-like servants. Who exactly is your master? Open your dog eyes wide and take a good look. All of you come back here. This empress didn't order you to withdraw. So which one of you dares to disobey this empress's decree? You also leave." Duanyu coldly interrupted the empress's scolding as he coldly stared at Mi Hung, who was standing next to the empress with her head lowered. "Your Highness the Crown Prince, this servant is Her Majesty the Empress's personal senior royal maid. If Her Majesty the Empress doesn't order this servant to leave, this servant naturally cannot leave." "Ing." Duanyu didn't quarrel with her, and merely called out dryly. Ing instantly understood and rushed forward. He picked up senior royal maid Mi Hung and walked outside. Mi Hung instantly shouted in horror, "You? What are you doing? Your Highness the Crown Prince. You can't treat the Empress like that. She is your official mother after all. Your Highness, your Highness." Her scream did not reach Duanyu's ears, and Duanyu quickly brushed her voice to the back of his mind. She looked coldly at Empress Lu in front of her and said with a smile, "What a loyal maid. What do you think, Empress?" Empress Lu looked around the main hall. Only she and Duanyu were present, so she was naturally well aware of Duanyu's strength. At this moment, she finally couldn't help but feel afraid. You unfilial son. What are you trying to do?" Empress Lu said angrily. "Unfilial son?" Duanyu smiled noncommittally. "If your father in the underworld knew that you, an unfilial son, treated your official mother like this less than a day after his death, do you think His Majesty would be so angry that he would come back from the underworld to find you? Imperial Father? Do you think Imperial Father will really care about these messy things?" Duanyu countered with a smile. "Do you think if Imperial Father could care about this matter, your Lu family would really suffer a calamity of extermination?" Empress Lu shrieked harshly. "It really was you. It really was you. You unfilial son, unfilial son." Chapter 41-34. You actually dared to treat your own official mother like this. If the heavens knew, you would be struck by lightning. You. Pa. A palm wind fiercely landed on Empress Lu's face, sending her flying and crashing heavily onto the bed. Empress Lu was instantly stupefied from the blow. She only felt a scorching pain on her cheeks, which made her so angry that she couldn't stop trembling. You unfilial son. Unfilial son. Duanyu glanced at her with a sneer. Your son died in the pond long ago. Who are you calling now? You. Empress Lu's lips trembled. My mother is only one person. Duanyu glanced at her mockingly. You're not worthy. Pfft. Empress Lu was so angry that she spat out a mouthful of blood. Duanyu looked at her mockingly. Don't die from vomiting blood. Don't worry, your good days have just begun. You really did it, you did it. Empress Lu struggled to sit up on the bed. Her cold and malicious eyes stared fixedly at Duanyu as she demanded sternly. Why? 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 Did you lose your memory, Your Majesty? You really don't know why our mother died. Did you think that there would be no trace of it after having someone poison the soul-devouring flower into the rouge that my mother usually used? My mother's fingernails were infected with the soul-devouring flower's poison. Duanyu said mildly as he lowered his gaze. The Empress's eyes abruptly widened, and she almost couldn't adjust her facial expression for a moment. She was actually discovered. I heard that the Empress has several physicians by her side, and she also usually teaches the head royal maid Mi Hung some common medicinal and medical knowledge. The Empress's method is truly impressive. Even if cultivators came to investigate, they wouldn't connect the dots by poisoning a mortal with the soul-devouring flower. That's because this soul-devouring flower is too common. Some female cultivators even specially use it to concoct perfume, and its fragrance assails the nostrils. Who would have thought that this kind of thing that is completely useless to cultivators would be a slow-acting poison to normal people? Bring him in, Duan Yu coldly ordered. Suddenly, a whimpering sound came from the entrance of the palace. An old nanny with long hair draped over her shoulders, and a frightened expression was pushed in from the outside. She knelt heavily on the ground. The elderly nanny stared at Duan Yu in horror. She didn't dare to speak, and started kowtowing to him first. Who would have thought that Mother Lin, who had served my mother for so many years, would be bribed by the Empress when she just came to the Divine Land? Half a year. For half a year, Madame Lin has been poisoning my mother. Let the poison seep into her body bit by bit, until it explodes at a certain point. Nanny Lin was trembling non-stop as she looked at Duan Yu with a pleading expression. Your Highness, this old servant also had no choice. This old servant didn't want to betray Her Majesty. When my granddaughter arrived in the Divine Land, she was controlled by the Empress's people. This old servant had no other choice. This old servant was forced to do so. Duan Yu looked at her with a sneer. Your entire family must die. Nanny Lin collapsed to the ground at once, her entire body trembling uncontrollably. No, Your Highness, no. My family is innocent. What right do a traitorous servant have to negotiate terms with us? Duan Yu raised his hand, and Ning immediately led people to drag that old biddy out. Oh, trying to adjust the time. Chapter 4135. Even through the thick palace doors, they could still hear Nanny Lin's shrill and frantic screams and curses. But soon that voice completely stopped. Even the dozen or so sobbing voices outside all quieted down. The stagnant water was silent. Empress Lu's pupils contracted as she stared at Duan Yu in horror. She only felt that this youth before her was even colder and more heartless than usual. He was indeed beautiful, but when she was stared at by his cold eyes, she truly felt a trace of fear from the bottom of her heart. You, what do you want? Empress Lu couldn't resist shouting in a trembling voice. A chill flitted past Duan Yu's lips. His smile was faint, but the ice in his eyes was about to shatter. With a light raise of his left hand, a woman in a blue and white robe with long sleeves slowly and gracefully walked in from outside Benevolence Palace. The woman bowed gracefully at the Empress. Greetings, Your Majesty the Empress. Who are you? Fear and hatred flitted through Empress Lu's eyes. She turned to look at Duan Yu and said sternly, Duan Yu, isn't it enough that you single-handedly helped that medicine woman Qingqing ascend the throne? Now where did you find this bitch from? What do you want? His Majesty has already passed away. Even if you... Empress, could it be that you didn't notice that this woman's figure is similar to yours? Duan Yu interrupted her chatter, his aloof voice faintly ringing by her ear. So what? Empress Lu was still unaware that death was imminent. She glared at Duan Yu with resentment and shouted harshly. Even if you ascend the throne as the Emperor of Zhangzhou, don't forget, I am still your official mother. Even if you are the Emperor of Zhangzhou, I am still the Empress Dowager, who is second only to one person, and above everyone else. Empress Lu bellowed angrily. No matter how high your accomplishments are, disrespecting your official mother is still a serious crime. Duan Yu glanced at her mockingly. Disrespecting your official mother. She was indeed an idiot for daring to spout such nonsense, even at the brink of death. Open your dog eyes and look carefully, Duan Yu said coldly. With a slight raise of his hand, a young man immediately nodded and walked forward. He took out some medicine and small items, and had the woman sit down in front of the dressing mirror. She didn't understand how he did it, but she saw him apply some medicine on the woman's face, and pinch it a few times. The woman's expression changed completely. Empress Lu's eyes widened in horror. She pointed at the woman with a trembling finger and cried out repeatedly. You, this woman's face was extremely similar to hers. There was a hint of boniness in the deathly pale face. Wasn't this her own face? They were too alike. Although there were still some differences in the details, at first glance, there was really no difference. Normal officials wouldn't dare to stare at the Empress's appearance, So if it was just a glimpse, the woman's disguise was flawless. Wrongly. Empress Lu shrieked angrily. What do you think you're doing? You want to find someone to impersonate me? You unfilial son. How dare you treat your own mother like this? You will definitely suffer the wrath of heaven for being so rebellious and die without a burial ground. Insolence. Ying roared angrily. Duanyu, on the other hand, was unconcerned. He raised his hand to block Ying, who wanted to charge forward, and his gaze aloofly landed on Empress Lu. He asked with a smile, Empress, how about we tell you another secret? Empress Lu's eyelids twitched fiercely, and her entire body nearly collapsed to the ground. Chapter 4136. As she gazed at the man who resembled a malicious ghost, she felt her limbs turn ice-cold, and she trembled with fear. What do you want to say? Empress Lu's lips quivered, and she suddenly felt that her voice was very dry. Duanyu smiled faintly at her. That smile was truly peerlessly beautiful. Unfortunately, how could the Empress see that handsomeness? Only fear and panic were left in her eyes. Your son Rongli has already died long ago. The Empress's heart shuddered violently, and she retorted coldly. I know, he drowned in the pond. You sent someone to do it, right? You're a wolf with wild ambitions. My leader has already been crippled, so how could he block your path? Why won't you even let off a dethroned crown prince? Such a ruthless heart. It's not like that. Duanyu murmured softly with a deep smile. Your son, Rongli, has already died long ago in the imperial capital of Dragon Flame. He turned into ashes and dissipated from this world. Duanyu pointed at the dust on the ground and said with a smile, Resurrection pill? I naturally have it, but your son doesn't need it at all. Duanyu took a step forward and murmured, He has already died long ago, and his soul and soul have been obliterated. Following his words, Empress Lu's eyes nearly oozed blood. She stared fixedly at the malicious ghost in front of her and roared, but she couldn't spit out a single word. Does it hurt? Duanyu placed his hand on his chest and gazed at her coolly. It hurts a lot, right? Don't worry, the pain you inflicted on us back then, us will return it all to you. Puffed. Empress Lu was truly so infuriated that she spat out a mouthful of blood, and her entire person instantly wilted. Duanyu raised his hand, and had the woman dressed like the Empress stand up before gracefully walking 2 rounds. Do I look like her? Duanyu asked Empress Lu with a grin. Empress Lu's face was ghastly pale, and she trembled non-stop. It was as if she was looking at a monster that crawled up from hell. As if it was her first day meeting this Duanyu, large beads of sweat seeped out of her forehead and rolled down. I had her learn palace etiquette for more than a month. From the looks of it now, it really is quite effective. Duanyu remarked dryly. She can have her highness's grace now, right? It was more than 70 to 80%. Even her number 1 palace maid Mi Hung probably wouldn't have any suspicions. Your Majesty has toiled for so many years, so it's time to leave the palace and enjoy life. Duanyu narrowed his eyes at her, revealing a faint carefreeness. You want to become the Empress Dowager, who is second only to one and above everyone else? Duanyu chuckled. I'm afraid you won't be able to fulfill your long-cherished destiny in this lifetime. You want to take me out of the palace? You found someone to impersonate me, and even wanted to take me out of the palace. What exactly do you want? A silver needle suddenly pierced her back. Empress Lu fell to the ground with a plop. She struggled with all her might, but she felt her limbs go soft, and she couldn't move at all. She tried to move, but she couldn't. At the same time, the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th silver needles flew all around her head and neck, piercing her body. Oh! Empress Lu whimpered softly in pain. She stared fixedly at Duanyu, as if she wanted to bite off a piece of his flesh. Duanyu coldly glanced at her. Do you still remember Beauty Wang? She was the woman who poisoned my mother during the heavenly ice snow region's encirclement, and was later discovered by my Diao. Chapter 4137. Do you think I don't know who ordered Beauty Wang? You claim to be smart, but you're actually as stupid as a pig. Duanyu looked at Empress Lu and sneered. Not only did you make Beauty Wang take the blame for you, But you also made Beauty Wong take the blame for you. He even ruthlessly sent someone to kill her. Beauty Wong was demoted to a commoner and was killed by your people after she was chased out of the Ice Heaven Snow region. You even suspected that she might have left behind evidence. So after returning to the palace, you sent people to search her maiden residence. You went all the way and killed Beauty Wong's family of 8. You did all of this, right, Your Majesty the Empress? Duan Yu gazed at her coldly. At this moment, Empress Lu was lying on the ground, unable to move her limbs. She was in so much pain that she couldn't even speak. Of course, Duan Yu didn't expect her to reply. He merely raised his hand and pointed at the woman who resembled the Empress in disguise. She is Beauty Wong's younger sister, and the only survivor. Are you happy, Empress? It's time to meet an old friend. Wang Shi walked forward with a silver needle in her hand. Her eyes were cold. Empress Lu opened her mouth, trembling and panicking. Her voice was as soft as a mosquito's. What do you want? The last silver needle in Wang Shi's hand pierced into the left side of her neck. Ah! Empress Lu let out a low and shrill scream. Wang Shi smiled viciously at her. Suddenly, a packet of powder appeared in her hand. Together with the packet, she fiercely smeared it on the Empress's face. The Empress immediately let out a tragic scream, unable to raise her hands. He only felt that his face was boiling hot, as if it was on fire, or as if his face was being melted by something. His entire face, except for the area around his eyes, had sunk into the inferno of hell. It was too fucking painful. The Empress' limbs trembled on the ground, and her screams became softer and softer. If she could move her body, she would have been rolling on the ground by now. Unfortunately, his acupuncture points were sealed by silver needles, and he couldn't move at all. Your Majesty, please enjoy your life in the future. Wang Shi smiled coldly and curtsied to her. This servant will keep the position of Empress Dowager for the Empress. Why didn't you kill me? The Empress's voice was hoarse, as she looked up at Duan Yu with resentment. Kill you? Duan Yu curled his lips, revealing a mocking, icy indifference. Wouldn't killing you be letting you off too easily? He sneered. Ask yourself, do you really love your son? Do you love your husband? You don't love anyone. What you love the most is the power and status in your hands. If the Lu family dies, it won't affect your power, so you won't feel heartache. You, what do you want to say? The pain in Empress Lu's body was magnified infinitely. Now she only felt that her hands and feet were numb, and even her neck was so stiff that she could not move. A wooden wheelchair was pushed in front of her. Someone lifted her up and threw her into the wheelchair. Empress Lu snorted heavily. Her eyes were brimming with tears, and her fingers twitched as if it took all the strength in her body to do so. You will spend the rest of your life in pain and torment. Duan Yu sneered at her, and threw a mute pill into her mouth with a flick of his finger. Ah! Empress Lu opened her mouth, but found that no sound came out. She widened her eyes in horror. Chapter 4138. Could it be that this heartless man wanted to send her out of the palace and put her under house arrest? To torture her for the rest of her life? No, she couldn't live a life worse than a dog's. She couldn't. She was the Empress of Tsangzhou, the noble daughter of Tsangzhou's Lu Madam. She shouldn't live like this in this lifetime. She couldn't live like this. Empress Lu couldn't help but tremble all over, and her teeth chattered. If she could, she would rather commit suicide than live on without any dignity like she did now. But could she commit suicide? Right now, she really didn't even have the strength to lift a finger. Rongli was truly heartless to this extent, practically comparable to the netherworld ghost's Hellflower. Take her out of the transportation array. Duan Yu turned his head, and didn't look at the Empress's desolate face again. Was he heartless? Of course he was. Did he regret it? Of course he didn't. Someone humiliated him, trampled on him, and used his power to kill his mother, making it difficult for him to see his mother again in this lifetime. He naturally wanted to take revenge. But this vengeful heart, this ruthless and resolute method. If Jojo knew, would he loathe him? Right now he couldn't sleep at night. Looking back at the mirror, he almost couldn't tell whether the person in the mirror was a human or a ghost. Was it a night owl or a ghost when we meet again? I wonder if you can still recognize me? Shadow followed him out of Benevolence Palace. After walking silently for a while, he couldn't resist asking in a low voice. Master, although we nurtured Wang Nei, we've only interacted with her for a little more than 2 months. If in the future Wang Nei harbors a trace of disloyalty, Duan Yu sneered. Harbor a trace of disloyalty? Then let the Empress Dowager pass away. He only wanted temporary stability. If the Empress Dowager died before he ascended the throne, then the spittle from inside and outside the court would probably drown him. But after he ascended the throne after a year and a half, wouldn't it be too normal for the Empress Dowager to be depressed and die from illness? When I hold power in my hands, the starlight filling the sky and flowers blooming on the ground can all bloom for me. A faint voice slowly floated in the middle of the night. The group of black-clothed youths behind him instantly knelt on one knee and cupped their hands in unison. We swear allegiance to His Highness the Crown Prince's life. The light and shadow of the teleportation flashed and disappeared. Empress Lu was pushed out of the teleportation array, with a sorrowful look on her face, as she wept silently, looking at the desolate courtyard in front of her. A trace of tragic emotion appeared in the Empress' eyes. The person who came to receive her was a deaf-mute woman. The young man in black made a few hand gestures to her. The deaf-mute woman nodded and pushed Empress Lu's wheelchair inside. In the years that followed, the Empress Dowager stayed in this desolate little courtyard. Every afternoon, the deaf-mute woman would push the Empress Dowager to the high slope behind the small courtyard. He told her to look at the red walls and green tiles in the distance, which were as bright as pearls. She wanted her to watch the new emperor ascend the throne. Amnesty for the world. The city was decorated with lanterns and streamers to congratulate the new emperor on his ascension to the throne. Does your heart ache? You are only half a step away from the Empress Dowager position. Actually, you don't love anyone. You and Imperial Father are a perfect match. People like you only love yourselves far away in the Divine Land's Polarity Hall. Mo Luxing received the news when the sun rose to the east. The Zhangzhou Emperor was gone. He's gone just like that. Bai Wuxia sighed deeply. He slowly put down the cup in his hand and frowned. But calculating the time, it was about time. Chapter 4139. No matter how much love and hatred, they were all just a drop in the ocean. In the long river of time, they would eventually fade away completely. No one could tell if it was right or wrong. In the end, it would be an empty and fleeting past. At the holy auspicious arena, clamorous shouts sounded again. The drowsy Sir Jojo was startled awake by the noise. She nuzzled her small head in her husband's arms and narrowed her eyes, too lazy to look up. Speaking of which, this competition simply challenged a normal person's bottom line. The competition lasted for 7 consecutive days, regardless of day or night. During these 7 days, they ate, drank, and peed in the arena. Of course, the tea and snacks in the arena were provided for both the morning and evening meals. However, they had to pay for it themselves. You paid to enter the arena to watch the competition, so you naturally had to continue spending money for other expenses. Haha! One had to know that there were more than 50,000 spectators watching the competition this time. Excluding the more than 10,000 cultivators, the remaining spectators were all normal spectators. To make these normal people watch the competition for 7 consecutive days and nights, in such a noisy environment, without sleep or rest, this was really fucking satisfying. Sir Jojo felt that if she were a normal person, she definitely wouldn't pay for this torture. She was simply crazy, wasn't she? She had already dozed off a few times. Jojo, why are you so sleepy? The little fatty asked energetically. That's right, we're all cultivators. So why are you so sleepy? A female student from the Royal Academy couldn't resist interjecting. The little stoic was actually able to sleep peacefully under such a burning situation. This was simply too wondrous, alright? Jojo, you can't be your... Qi Xianxian suddenly thought of something and grabbed her wrist, excitement faintly showing in her eyes. Sir Jojo rolled her eyes and glanced at her, keenly catching the various gazes coming from all around her. She immediately slapped away Qi Xuanxuan's hand in irritation. No, How could she not understand the glint in Xuan's eyes? As a doctor, how could she not know whether she was pregnant or not, and how her body's condition was? If she was pregnant, how could she still be like today, jumping around happily everywhere? It wasn't like she was stupid, she was simply worrying for her for nothing. Furthermore, who said that a pregnant person would definitely feel sleepy? Oh. Qi Xianxian pursed her lips and revealed a disappointed expression. Whether it was a boy or girl, Jojo's child would definitely be exquisite and adorable, right? Would it be a stoic face like Jojo? Student Xianxian was thinking about all sorts of things. Qiao looked at her in amusement. After being disturbed by them, she woke up half of her drowsiness. Qiao, let me calculate the time. Your second match in the free-for-all arena should be coming soon. Mo Lian lowered his head to glance at the little one, before holding her small hand and rubbing her face. Quickly wake up, my Qiao. Do you want to go up and fight in this sleepy state? Qiao Mu speechlessly pulled down his hand and glanced at him before asking, What time is it now? Jojo, look at the points on the black crystal screen. Where am I? Arbor looked at the black crystal screen in the middle of the arena, that was as tall as a person, and about 10 meters long. You haven't even fought 2 matches, so you're probably in the top 100. As they spoke, the host Nuno Duo suddenly leaped onto one of the arenas and announced with a smile, the second match of the free challenge. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.